Chapter 463. The grievances between Zhou Mumu and Zhan Zai began during the Five Blood Spirit Crown Power struggle and continued to this day. The two quarreled as soon as they saw each other, and when they quarreled, they would fight. During this period it was difficult to say who was right and who was wrong. According to Wang Lu, it was best for the two to go back to their hometown and get married. At least he had always been in a neutral position. But now, it seemed that Wang Lu finally understood Zhou Mumu's hostility to Zhan Zai. This grandson really deserved to be beaten. What do you mean you can't? Zhan Zai spread out his hands and said, I'm only responsible for coming here, not going back. It's easy to see from the analysis of the principle. I was able to open the passage through the resonance of the eternal tree. Now that we are in the demon world, there is no eternal tree in 9 regions that can resonate with me. So, Zhan Zai looked at Wang Lu strangely and said, so isn't it natural that I can't send everyone back? Junior brother Wang Lu, with your logical thinking ability, you can't even think of this small thing, right? Then with your logical thinking ability, you should be able to think that I'm not the only one who will beat you up later, right? Wang Lu shook his head and was too lazy to talk nonsense with this damn otaku. Instead, he turned his gaze to Zhou Mumu. The girl was also stunned. I thought one of you 4 would have a way. You should really go back to your hometown with Zhan Zai and get married. Then Wang Lu looked at Xiang Liang. Xiang Liang said, I can only guarantee my own return. I thought that in this trip to the demon world, each of us is responsible for our own return and return. Well, very well, you can forget about finding a wife in this life. In the end, Wang Lu could only look at Qianghua. Unexpectedly, Qianghua just frowned and said softly a moment later, there are some changes in the Kill Immortal sword. Although the meaning was a bit vague, how could Wang Lu not hear it? He nodded and said, in short, you are also a fucking cripple, right? With that, he saw the eyes of the 4 people around him. Obviously the only hope now was Wang Lu. Wang Lu Jinren Wang was the best at creating miracles and was almost omnipotent. Wang Jinren sighed in his heart. This trip to the demon realm was really carried out by one god after another. It was really exciting. The situation had developed to this point, and looking at the plan he had prepared before coming here, a certain Howling clan member named Annecy, and the plan to use him to call the Flash clan to open the passage, it was really a slap in the face. At this time, not to mention the Howl race and the Flash race, even the Royal race couldn't protect themselves. Who would open the passage between the 2 worlds for him? At this point, I can only use my ultimate move to save my life. Wang Lu shook his head and reached out to pat Xiang Liang's shoulder. Senior brother Xiang Liang, after you return to 9 regions, please help me go to Spirit Sword Mountain and find a bitch named Wang Wu. Tell her that her one and only precious disciple is now trapped in the demon world. If she doesn't save him, she will have no descendants. Zhou Mumu was dumbfounded. Is this your life-saving move? Send someone back to the mountain to call for help? Xiang Liang didn't think too much about it. After gawking for a moment, he nodded vigorously. Rest assured, I will definitely bring the message. By the way, help me threaten her. If she would rather die than save me, then some of her secrets that she can't see will be widely spread to every corner of 9 regions 1 month after I lost contact with her. At that time, even if her skin is thick enough to not care about it, sect leader senior brother would definitely care about it. Then she can forget about her position as an elder and her consecration. Xiang Liang carefully remembered these words. After thinking about it for a while, he was deeply impressed. Junior brother Wang Lu is really resourceful, thoughtful, and meticulous. Zhou Mumu asked, 5th elder's secret that cannot be seen? Wang Lu spread out his hands and said, actually it's nothing. With the thickness of her skin, all her secrets can be seen. But I believe that with her personality she will always have a guilty conscience. If I trick her like this, I will probably succeed. You 2 master and disciple are really... Zhou Mumu shook her head. In short, even you can't do anything? Very well, if Xiang Liang can successfully bring reinforcements, of course that's good. Although I doubt it, it's better to let one go than to die here. As soon as her voice fell, Xiang Liang said, there is an unexpected change in the resonance of the battle spirit. The resonance transmission failed. Haha, what a good brother who shares weal and woe with you. You can still laugh? Wang Lu was about to speak when he suddenly heard the demon girl ask, do you want to leave? Yes, dear minister, do you have a good plan? The demon girl said, the passage between the 2 worlds has been closed 2,000 years ago, but just more than 100 years ago, there has been some change in the savage land at the border of the demon world. It seems that the edge of the entire demon world has become blurred. Perhaps, you can find a way to leave there. More than 100 years ago, the edge of the demon world? Perhaps the demon world has reached the edge of destruction, and the structure of the world is no longer stable. Because it's too far away from here, we haven't personally seen it. We only know that more than 100 years ago, there was a great change in the demon world. Even if it's far away, we can still smell the stench from 9 regions. Tisk, more than 100 years ago, did the septic tank of 9 regions leak? Wang Lu shook his head and asked, in short, as long as we go along the edge, there is hope to find 9 regions, right? But now that the black tide is raging, what should we do? The surging of the black tide has a cycle. Although it has become more and more restless recently, at a specific time it will calm down, and that is the time for you to act. How long will it take to get to the edge of the demon world from here? The vastness of the world seemed boundless even for a Taoist master of Jindan's stage. Right now, the 9 regions had been almost explored by the cultivators, and each major traffic artery had a transmission array node. Even so, the journey across the continent was still extremely long. As for the demon world, even if the 5 of them desperately rushed, could they reach the edge before the arrival of the black tide? You guys have good luck. The demon girl said, if it was 2,000 years ago with your cultivation base, you wouldn't be able to make it. But after 2,000 years, the land of the demon world has become narrower and narrower, and the edge continues to collapse and penetrate. With the current situation, perhaps you guys can still make it. TSK, is this a racing game? Wang Lu suddenly had a headache. He was good at offense and defense, but he was not good at racing. We can take you. The tall demon girl suddenly said, our speed is very fast. Then I'll have to trouble you. Wang Lu was not polite. Right now he was the king of the demon world. Although this king only had 2 lonely and precarious demon girls, since they volunteered, there was no reason not to use them. In terms of speed, this pair of demon girls was indeed far above the several lead disciples. However, the petite girl was surprised and immediately pulled her companion's hand. Sister, are you crazy? Being loyal to the king is our mission that we have been waiting for our whole life. The tall girl lightly said, her eyes turning to Wang Lu, and he is our king. But he is a human after all? The demon jade fell into the hands of a human cultivator, and then miraculously appeared in front of us. I believe there must be a reason behind this. The 2 sisters stared at each other for a long time. In the end, the younger sister was the first to give up. Well, I'll listen to you. 2 days later, the black tide on the ground finally dissipated, and the unique blood-red light of the demon world once again shrouded the earth. Wang Lu and the others also embarked on their journey. Along the way they were accompanied by 2 demon girls. They flew at the front of the team, dragging behind them 5 chains of light, which were as gorgeous as a rainbow. However, behind the beautiful scenery, it was actually 2 young girls dragging the 5 chief disciples forward like animals pulling a cart. After taking off their armors, their speed was even faster than Zhan Zai's thunder body, so they were duty-bound to take on the heavy responsibility of pulling the carriage. Today's demon world had greatly shrunk, and its area was only a fraction of that before the collapse of the eternal tree. And if the 2 demon girls ran at full speed, it would only take them half a day to reach the edge of the eternal tree ruins in the center of the demon world. According to the usual pattern, the interval between the arrival of the black tide was 2 to 3 days, which was more than enough time. In theory, as long as they continued to move along the edge, they could find the road to 9 regions. With the keenness of the several lead disciples, it was not impossible for them to detect it. And once they entered 9 regions, they could activate their respective sects' heavenly talismans and teleport back to the mountain. During the half-day journey, Wang Lu tried to talk to the 2 girls, but was rejected by the other party with the reason that they needed to devote all their attention to flying. Wang Lu saw that they really didn't want to talk, so he didn't use the power of the demon jade to strictly restrain them. In any case, after half a day they would be separated from each other, minding their own business. The harvest from this trip to the demon world was enough. If there was no special reason, he believed that he would not come to this destroyed land for a long time. In other words, after half a day he would have to say goodbye to the 2 demon girls forever. However, just as he was thinking, the speed of the demon girls in front of him suddenly slowed down. Wang Lu somewhat strangely asked, "What happened?" "It's in front." As the elder sister, the demon girl pointed forward and saw a strange starlight flickering on the horizon. The light was distorted and broken there, which happened to outline a scene of space disorder. "Is this the scene at the edge of the world? It's really a rare spectacle in life," Wang Lu said, and then urged, "There is still the last part of the road. I will have to trouble the 2 of you to work harder and help me to the end." Who knew that the elder sister shook her head. "I can't do it." "Can't do it?" Wang Lu discovered that the bodies of the two demon girls were trembling slightly and quickly, as if they were enduring great pain and weakness. We were able to survive the cataclysm under the protection of the eternal tree. The voice of the demon girl was intermittent and getting weaker, so we can't be too far away from the eternal tree, otherwise, we won't be able to maintain our existence. Originally, I thought that my sister and I could persist until the end, but it seems that we can't do it. At this point, the bodies of the two demon girls began to ooze blood, and their bodies were on the verge of collapsing. Wang Lu was inexplicably surprised. You should have said this earlier. Why do you have to risk your life like this? With that, he tried to take out a life-saving pill, but the demon girl shook her head. The medicine of human cultivators is ineffective on us. Recently, the black tide has been descending more and more frequently, and the interval between them may not be more than 2 or 3 days. With just you two, it's too late. The demon girl finished speaking and then knelt down on the ground. Her body continued to be reduced to ashes. Moreover, I hope that you can always remember this place. Don't forget it so quickly. With that, the two demon race girls vanished into thin air and were carried away by the wind. At the last moment, Wang Lu didn't even know their names. But he knew that he would probably remember this place forever. Chapter 464. The edge of the demon world was already right in front of them. The broken starry sky flickered in front of them, and the fragments of space fluttered disorderly. The rolling red clouds in the sky reflected the fire, illuminating the future. There was no surprise or danger along the way. It seemed that the black tide that wreaked havoc in this world was too late to stop the lead disciple of the Wanxian League from going home. It was undoubtedly a gratifying thing to get important information in the demon world and return triumphantly. However, along the way the 5 of them were silent, and they could not squeeze out even a little bit of joy on their faces. The sacrifice of the 2 demon girls was like a heavy burden, which made it difficult for them to breathe. Even Xianghua, who had the most extreme standpoint of a mortal and demon race, seemed listless. The 2 demon girls had indeed succeeded. Although they didn't even leave their names behind, their resolute figures were forever engraved in people's minds. It was not the heart demon, but it was better than the heart demon. The demon race was indeed the race that was best at playing with the heart demon, and this was even more so for the royal family of the demon race. In silence, the 5 of them finally entered the broken space. From the moment they set foot on the edge of the world, even if they didn't have the energy, they had to raise their spirits to deal with all the changes. The space here was broken and there were hidden dangers everywhere. If they were not careful, they might be cut into minced meat by the fragments of the space. If the 5 of them could be safe and sound in the demon world where the black tide raged, it would be too ironic if they eventually fell at the finish line. However, unexpectedly, when they approached the edge of the world, they found that the performance of the space was far calmer than expected. The dazzling starlight seemed to come from a distant place. This should be the edge of the world, right? There should be a void in front of us, right? Zhou Mumu asked doubtfully, why do I feel that there seems to be a strong vitality in front of us? Oh, is it because you're about to give birth? Wang Lu casually responded. Don't think that because we have a good friendship, I'm not willing to hit you. Perhaps 9 regions is in front of us? The 2 worlds have merged with each other, so you feel the vitality from 9 regions? Wang Lu's perception was not keen, so he just casually guessed. It's not the same. I don't smell the smell of 9 regions at all. It's all the stench of demon race. Just as Zhou Mumu finished speaking, Zhan Zai also exclaimed in surprise, all the indicators here are abnormal. It can't be explained with any current theories. Yes, you can consider staying here to study for 100 or 200 years. We will remember to burn incense for you in 9 regions. Compared with Zhou Mumu and Zhan Zai who liked to cause trouble, Wang Lu just wanted to return to 9 regions as soon as possible. This trip to the devil world was really too unpleasant. Thereupon, he took the lead and propped up the broken space with his non-phase sword defense. And under the protection of the non-phase sword defense, no evil could invade. A few chief disciples walked beside Wang Lu, feeling this gentle yet tenacious sword qi, each of them comprehending something in their hearts. While walking, Qianghua suddenly said, Junior brother Wang's non-phase sword defense seems to have improved again. Among the present-age cultivators, I'm afraid no one can penetrate your non-phase sword defense with the same cultivation base. With the relationship between Wang Lu and Qianghua, it was hard to imagine that she would express her praise and affirmation of Wang Lu without concealment. However, if one was familiar with Qianghua, they would know that this was Qianghua's pride as a sword cultivator. Because of her pride, she was not stingy with the praise of others, because no matter how much praise there was, it could not shake her confidence in herself. Similarly, because of her pride, she could not tolerate herself to do something too petty. The perfection of Wang Lu's non-phase sword defense was obvious to all. Even if she didn't say it, could the other chief disciples not see it? Wang Lu himself was a bit surprised by this. He glanced at Qianghua and sneered, but he didn't bicker with her as usual. Non-phase sword defense was indeed powerful, but to say that it was invincible on the same level was also a joke. Perhaps with Qianghua's swordsmanship, without using the kill immortal sword, she was powerless against Wang Lu. However, Wang Lu clearly knew that on Spirit Sword Mountain, there were two girls who absolutely had the ability to penetrate his non-phase sword defense with the same cultivation base. Although the IQ of the two of them combined was not as high as that of Qianghua's. Otherwise, he would not have been valued by the elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall, and would have been nurtured as the sect's lead disciple even before his cultivation had taken shape. While he was thinking about it, the front suddenly opened up. It turned out that the group of people had unknowingly crossed the chaotic edge of the world and came to a new world. It was just that, in the face of the new world, the group of people was stunned and completely speechless. What is this place? Zhou Mumu subconsciously walked to the front of the team and cast a variety of Kunlun immortal method on her eyes. However, no matter how hard she tried, she could not see what she wanted. What entered her field of vision was a rich and prosperous land. Several of them were standing on the top of a high mountain. At the foot of the mountain was a bustling city. The majestic city wall was like a mountain that wrapped the city, but it could not isolate the vitality of the city. The city was bustling with activity and bustling with noise. Although the style of the city was unique and even strange, the prosperity of the people here was also an eye-opener. In 9 regions, those first-tier cities were just like this. However, Zhou Mumu was very sure that this city was by no means any city in 9 regions. Because there was no city in the 9 regions where millions of demons lived. But these fiend races' actions made people completely unable to fathom. Zhou Mumu clearly saw a group of more than 10 tall and sturdy demons with bone spurs on their backs walking on the spacious street. From time to time, they curiously looked at the dense buildings on both sides of the street. Beside these tall and sturdy demons, there were several groups of gray mist lingering around, and from time to time they made a sharp sound. They were also a member of the demon race. A demon race that did not have a complete entity and was best at attacking the mind, close to the heart demon. However, these mist-like demons were not quarreling with the tall and sturdy demons, but persuading them to enter their own shops and buy goods. Most of the buildings on both sides of the street were demon race shops, and the dazzling array of goods were placed in the open display cabinets for people to appreciate. A tall and sturdy bone demon stopped and communicated with the fog demon in a muffled voice. Then he took out 2 burning coins from the leather bag at his waist and threw them on the counter. He then took off a gorgeous hat and put it on his head. His companions turned around one after another and commented on him. Then a few of them were tempted, and each of them paid for a similar hat to wear on their heads, all of them laughing foolishly. Such a peaceful and warm scene, if it happened in the human world of 9 regions, no one would be surprised because it was the daily life of the people of 9 regions. However, when it came to the demon race, how could there be such a gentle and orderly demon race in the world? The tall and sturdy bone demon was the vanguard of the demon race in the war of immortals and demons. They did not know pain or fatigue. They would persist in killing until they could no longer move. Their mind was only filled with killing and torture. At the same time, the civilization of the bone demon race was also at an extremely primitive level. They didn't even know the basic barter. If they liked something, they would rob it. If someone tried to stop them, they would kill it. If they couldn't kill it, they would die. They had always been unafraid of death. And how could such a bone demon honestly pay for a purchase? Why would he buy a fancy hat? As for the fog demon, it had also made countless cultivators of 9 regions gnash their teeth. They were insidious and despicable, best at playing with people's hearts and sowing discord. For them, being despicable and dark was their nature. Even among their own race, there was endless infighting. How could they honestly run a shop and solicit business? When the bone demon and the fog demon met, if there was no suppression from a higher-level demon race, the most common situation was that they would fight each other to the death. Am I seeing things? Zhou Mumu couldn't believe her eyes, but everything in front of her was undeniable. Therefore she couldn't understand it at all. What is this place? The same question emerged in the minds of the 5 people at the same time. This warm but strange scene not only did not make them calm down, but also doubled their vigilance. However, at this time, several flashes of light suddenly flew from the city wall to the top of the mountain in the blink of an eye, and then arrived in front of Wang Lu and the others. They were on full alert. Among them, Xiang Liang couldn't help but want to strike first. It was not difficult to judge the strength of these people through their speed. They were not the kind of enemy that could be easily taken down. Instead of passively defending, it was better to strike first. However, Xiang Liang's attack was stopped by Wang Lu. There were so many powerful enemies in a single city, so rashly making a move would only lead to death. This place was not like the previous desolate demon world. No matter how earth-shattering the fight was, as long as they turned around and hid their tracks, they would be safe. However, in a highly developed place, once they were the focus of attention, there was no possibility of hiding. Moreover, since they inexplicably came here from the edge of the world, the red jade pendant on their chest began to heat up. Therefore, Wang Lu thought it was best not to rush to make a move. Soon, things proved that his judgment was not wrong. After those flashes of light flew close, they quickly turned into humanoid shapes. 3 of them were green-skinned feather race and 1 black-skinned ink race. The ink race and the feather race were famous during the Great War of the Immortals and Demons. They were a famous master-follower race. The ink race was the leader and their skin was as black as ink. During battle they could turn their skin into indestructible black jade. The feather race on the other hand were skilled at flying and extremely fast. Several feather race and 1 demon could form a killing machine with both attack and defense. This group of 4 demons was a standard master-follower combination. However, unlike the records of the Great War of the Immortals and Demons where the main race and the follower race viewed each other with hatred, the 4 of them seemed harmonious and loving. When they saw Wang Lu and the others, they were extremely surprised. Then they began to discuss in low voices. For heads together they seemed to be extremely close. Then the leader of the ink race spoke. Although he spoke in the language of the demon race, the chief disciples all understood. Did you come here from the land of destruction? Chapter 465. Land of Destruction? Upon hearing this word, the several lead disciples were moved. Before coming to this strange world, the demon world where the black tide wreaked havoc was indeed worthy of the title of Land of Destruction. But if that was the Land of Destruction, what was this place now? Or rather, what exactly was going on here? After leaving the demon world, they should have returned to 9 regions, so why would there suddenly be such an episode? While the several lead disciples had different thoughts, Wang Lu had already opened his mouth and said in proficient demon language, "We are from the Eternal Village, where is this place?" While speaking, his expression showed just the right amount of confusion and blankness. The so-called Eternal Village was a popular name for the world in which the demon race lived. At this time, Wang Lu was going to play the role of an inhabitant of the demon world. Before setting out from 9 regions to the demon world, the several lead disciples had cast a spell to disguise themselves as demons, and the core of the spell was the harvest from the group of immortal tombs. The camouflage effect was almost flawless. Even the 2 royal family members of the demon race only saw the flaw in their conversation. At present, Ink Demon and Feather Demon were naturally powerless. After listening to Wang Lu's explanation, the Ink Demon opened his mouth in surprise, revealing several rows of fine teeth. Eternal Village? You guys really came from the Land of Destruction? I can't believe there are still living compatriots there. This is really unexpected. While speaking, the Feather Demon behind the Ink Demon also became excited. Living inhabitants of the old demon world? Oh my god, this is big news that hasn't happened in many years, and we are the first to witness it. We are going to be famous. Say, if those magazine reporters come to interview us, how can we tell the story and show ourselves at the same time? After we become famous, will there be businessmen looking for us to endorse their products? The conversation between the Feather Race members contained a great deal of information, so much so that even Wang Lu was unable to fully react in time. You said, Old Demon World? What does that mean? The Ink Demon said with a smile, Of course it's because here the place you see is called the New Demon World. A land that brings a new life to the demon race. New Demon Realm? Mo said, It's a long story to tell in detail. You look travel-worn. Your life in the old devil realm must have been very difficult, right? To be able to pass through the spatial barrier and come here, how much suffering must he have gone through? Why don't you follow us into the city to rest? I'll tell you the ins and outs of the matter. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I am the guard captain of Xanarkand. Just now, I saw that there was a change in the space on the mountain, so I brought my brothers here to investigate. I really found a great person. With that said, the Ink Man laughed again. The New Demon Realm hasn't seen a visitor from the old world for over 1,000 years. It's really my good luck to be able to find you at the first instance. After a pause, he suddenly asked, Can I use my name to name you? Under the greeting of several guards of Luca City, Wang Lu and his party officially entered this incredible demon city, Zanarkand. The ink demon arranged accommodation and food for them, and fully considered the cultivation of several people. The accommodation was arranged in a treasured place with all 5 elements, and the food was both delicious and nourishing medicinal cuisine. This also surprised Wang Lu and the others, because according to the customs of the demon race, blood pools and fresh meat seemed more suitable to entertain guests. Not long after they settled in Zanarkand with an uneasy mood, a higher-level demon came forward to entertain them. He was also an ink demon, but he was more mature and stronger than the guard captain. The guard captain was roughly equivalent to the peak of the human king pill, and this older demon was at least half a step into the deity stage. The level division of the demon race was different from that of humans, but the embodiment of strength was similar. He claimed to be the advisor of the city lord of Zanarkand. Zanarkand was indeed an incredible city. The strongest person at the peak of the king pill could only serve as the guard captain, but the advisor of the city lord was actually at the deity stage. And how powerful was the city lord himself? Just a city had such strong strength, how many things were hidden in this new demon world? With these questions, Wang Lu and his party sat down at the dining table, and the older advisor of the city lord did not have the slightest arrogance of a deity stage powerhouse. He warmly entertained them at the dining table, and his conversation was excellent. He explained the origin of the new demon world to Wang Lu and his party in detail. This land is truly a blessed land bestowed by the heavens. As he spoke, this elder devil's thoughts drifted back to a long time ago. At that time, the demon world had just suffered a catastrophe that destroyed the world. The eternal tree that supported the existence of the world was completely destroyed by blasphemous things, and even the laws of the demon world collapsed. Many creatures of the devil race died in the mutation, and even more went crazy, becoming bloodthirsty. At that time, the civilization that the demon world had accumulated for thousands of years could be destroyed at any time. Wang Lu and the others could not help but nod. This history was exactly the same as what the pair of royal sisters said. But the twist that happened later was unexpected. At that time, there was a big disagreement in the demon world. Some people decided to guard the wreckage of the eternal tree. The eternal tree was indeed the greatest creature in the 3,000 worlds. Even if it was destroyed by blasphemous things, its remains could still support a peaceful and comfortable space. But that was a slow path to death, and the shelter that the eternal tree could provide was very limited. In addition to the royal family, the number of places that the other demons could enter to receive shelter was very limited. So at that time, many people decided to explore the outside world. Hearing this, they could not help but be surprised because the pair of royal sisters had never said anything about this. Seeing the astonishment of Wang Lu and the others, the advisor smiled slightly. You are the new generation of the land of destruction after the great collapse, so you don't know much about what happened in the past. I'm afraid your ancestors would not have mentioned this to you. At that time, the demons hiding in the Eternal Tree Refuge did not believe that their compatriots who went out to explore could find a way to survive. The eternal tree of the demon world fell, and the laws of heaven and earth collapsed. No matter how you look at it, it was a dead end. And hiding in a safe place and watching your compatriots die is not something worth publicizing and passing on to future generations. Hearing this, Wang Lu had roughly figured out the context of the story. Later, those who went out to explore found this place? The consultant didn't answer him directly. Instead, he sighed with emotion. Those ancestors who dared to go out back then were the true elites of the demon world. They were powerful and could maintain their sanity after the laws of heaven and earth collapsed, leading more demons to strive for survival. More importantly, they had the responsibility of being elites, were not afraid of sacrifice and moved forward bravely. At that time, there were more than 10 teams that went out to explore, but only 2 teams succeeded in finding this place. The rest of the exploration teams all failed, and many of them could have spent the rest of their lives under the shelter of the eternal tree. With that, he raised his glass. To the ancestors. Wang Lu hesitated for a moment before also raising his glass. At this moment he was playing the role of an actor, dutifully playing the role of a demon, and the slight hesitation when he held the wine glass was just right, vividly playing the mentality of the residents of the old realm of devils. This made Zhou Mumu and the others stare in disbelief. At this time they remembered that Wang Lu's real rise to fame was really based on his superb acting skills. When he competed with Lu Li for the lead disciple position on Spirit Sword Mountain, his strength was far inferior to the other party, but with an amazing deception, Lu Li suffered a crushing defeat. However, only Wang Lu himself knew that he was really a bit stunned. because in the advisor's story he always felt that there were some problems. We are lucky. After putting down the glass, the advisor said, in this land, we recuperated and rebuilt our civilization, and this place is indeed like a blessed land given to us by the heavens, even more fertile than the original demon world. It only took us 2,000 years to become more powerful than before. For the future generations, it is like a blessing in disguise. Become more powerful than before, this sentence made people have to pay attention to it. The power of Zanarkand had been witnessed, then in the new demon world, how many cities like Zanarkand were there? How many advantages did 9 regions have compared to the new demon world? In the future, if the third great war of immortals and demons broke out, what were the odds of winning? While thinking, the advisor asked, how many survivors are there in the old demon world? Wang Lu replied, we are the last batch. The protection effect of the eternal tree has completely disappeared. After that, the advisor asked about some details of life in the old demon world. Under Wang Lu's superb improvisation, he didn't find any flaws at all. I see. The advisor nodded. We have considered sending people to the old demon world, but the space barrier is too strong. It's easy to go from the old demon world to the new demon world, but it's almost impossible to go back. In short, welcome to Zanarkand. Try to adapt to life in the new demon world. I believe you will like it here. Wang Lu and the others could only smile wryly. It was good to meet a hospitable host in a foreign land, but if the host was a demon, the feeling of these human cultivators would be particularly subtle. Qianghua put down the glass and was about to ask about the passage from this world to other worlds, but the advisor waved his hand and said, well, you've had a hard journey, so I won't disturb your rest. After the meal, rest in your room. Tomorrow morning, I will send someone to take you to familiarize yourself with Zanarkand. After that, he floated away, leaving only a confident and unrestrained back. As the advisor of the city master, of course, it was easy for him to be busy, but the opportunity for Qianghua to find out the truth slipped away, familiarize themselves with Zanarkand? The 5 human cultivators were not interested in familiarizing themselves with the demon race city. Compared with exploring the city, they were more looking forward to returning to 9 regions as soon as possible and reporting everything about their trip to the demon world to their sect. Chapter 466. We are trapped, right? At the dining table, Zhou said while flipping a pearl-like fish with chopsticks in boredom. However, it was knocked away by Wang Lu's chopsticks. Why are you stirring with your saliva chopsticks? Are you showing off your Kunlun immortal cultivation technique? Is your saliva fragrant? Isn't it disgusting? Zhou actually had something on her mind and acted subconsciously. After hearing Wang Lu's words, her face suddenly turned red. She slammed her chopsticks on the table and said, I don't need to eat, okay? However, thanks to Wang Lu's disturbance, the anxiety in the girl's heart also calmed down a little. I say? Zhou spoke again, what should we do next? Since we are already here, let's take things as they come. First, let's familiarize ourselves with Zanarkand, and then live in peace for a while. As Wang Lu said this, he began to eat without hesitation. Just now, the people at the dining table did not have much appetite, so there was 70 to 80% of the food left, which benefited Wang Lu. You still have the mood to eat? Zhou said anxiously, and we are just a few humans. What's the matter if we live in the demon city for a long time? Otherwise, Wang Lu asked, escape in the middle of the night? Are you afraid that we, the residents of the old world in the land of destruction, are not conspicuous enough? You have seen the strength of Zanarkand. A city consultant is close to a soul formation stage master. Once we are targeted as suspicious targets, do you think we can escape? Qianghua also said, this matter indeed needs to be considered in the long run. Acting rashly will only put us in danger and this city. I'm also very interested in learning more about it. Didn't we come to the demon world to explore its secrets? Since Wang Lu and Qianghua said so, the matter was basically settled. The 5 of them temporarily settled in Zanarkand and acted according to the situation. Early the next morning, there was indeed someone arranged by the city consultant who came to serve them. It was not an outsider, but the guard captain of Zanarkand who first discovered them. Ah, we meet again. The leader of the Ink clan had a bright smile on his face. His black face and white teeth reminded Wang Lu of his 7th martial uncle. The last time we parted ways, I didn't have time to introduce myself. I'm here to be your tour guide under the orders of the Lord Advisor. Aba said, looked up and down at Wang Lu and the others, and then repeatedly exclaimed in admiration. Wearing our Zanarkand clothes is really more pleasing to the eye. Yesterday when we first picked you up, it was like an unearthed cultural relic. But for us, you, the inhabitants of the old world, are actually almost like cultural relics. As soon as he finished speaking, ABA froze for a moment. Then he slapped his head repeatedly. I'm sorry, I've always been a straightforward person. I'm not discriminating against you because Sir Advisor has repeatedly told me that I'm not allowed to discriminate, ha. As he spoke, ABA took the initiative to step forward and pat Wang Lu on the shoulder. Although the few of you are from the remote and backward old world, I will bring you to adapt to the real civilized world as soon as possible. Since you can survive in the old world until the end, you should be talented. As long as you are willing to integrate here, you will soon find your place. Believe me, when the time comes, you will fall in love with Zanarkand. With this talkative tour guide, the rest of the time was noisy and fulfilling. Although ABA was a straightforward person and seemed to have a very limited level of intelligence, he was absolutely qualified to be a tour guide. His official position was the guard captain of Zanarkand, so he was very familiar with every corner of the city. He led Wang Lu and the others to tour the city in an orderly manner while introducing the long history of Zanarkand. From the introduction, Wang Lu had gradually outlined the whole picture of the new demon world in his mind. This was a highly civilized place. There were at least 20 to 30 cities like Zanarkand in the new demon world. Among them, the most prosperous and affluent central city was 10 times larger than Zanarkand. It had even surpassed Xingjing City in 9 regions. At the same time, the new demon world was full of geniuses and powerful people. The city master of Zanarkand was a well-known great demon lord, but he was not even in the top 50 in the entire new demon world. The great demon king located in the central city suppressed this world with his tyrannical strength that was close to the level of breaking through the void. According to the records left behind during the Great War of Immortals and Demons, the demon lord level of demon race corresponded to a Taoist master of deity stage, and the great demon lord was peak deity stage. Such a cultivation base could not be ranked in the top 50 in the new demon world. Although it could not be concluded that the strength of this world was stronger than that of 9 regions, after all, it was still shrouded in yin and yang. What was really surprising was that the civilization of the new demon world was established in just 2,000 years. From the initial few survivors of the old demon world to the present, 2,000 years sounded incredible. Because in 9 regions, even in the golden age of the fastest recovery of civilization, the achievements of the demon race were not as amazing as those of the current demon race. And for this question, ABA proudly gave the answer. Because the inhabitants of the new demon world are completely different from the demons of the past. We will no longer waste our energy on boring infighting and fighting. Instead, we will use all our strength to build our home. Without fighting and infighting, isn't that the great harmony of the world? Zhou somewhat incredulously asked. Because no matter in which record, the demon race was famous for their infighting. Even in the battle for the 5 blood spirit crown, the war between the 5 great demon races was very tragic. To say that the demon race didn't know how to fight was simply a fantasy. However, ABA was very sure. In the past 2,000 years, there has never been a war in the new demon world. With that, he deliberately pointed to 2 sturdy demons walking side by side on the street. Do you see them? Wang Lu looked at the 2 sturdy demons, one with brown skin and the other with silver skin. However, both of them were muscular just like rock puppets. Their bodies were covered with long hair, and their whole body exuded a strong aura. Their relationship seemed to be intimate and they seemed to be twins. Unfortunately, Wang Lu was not familiar with this hairy demon, so he just nodded silently and waited for ABA's next words. Silver demons and gray demons are irreconcilable enemies in the old world. Their ancestors formed a blood feud because of fighting for territory, which has been passed down from generation to generation. However, in the new demon world all the hatred was written off. Now the relationship between silver demons and gray demons is well known. TSK, look at that model couple. Their relationship is really enviable. Wait, what do you mean by model? ABA looked back at Wang Lu strangely. Model couple, a man and a woman. It's easy to tell, right? Look at how intimate they are. As they spoke, the 2 muscular giants who were walking side by side hugged each other tightly. Their sturdy muscles were tightly pressed against each other, and their thick hair interweaved together, becoming indistinguishable from each other. Their sweat reflected a sparkling and translucent light. The 2 huge heads pressed against each other, and they started kissing passionately. Wang Lu immediately poked his eyes. Damn, my eyes are going blind. Zhou face was pale. My breakfast seems to be coming out. Xianghua slightly turned her head and suppressed the urge to use the kill immortal sword with her supreme immortal heart. Zhan Zai inexplicably looked at the two muscular demons, not understanding why his companions had such a big reaction. Only Xiang Liang smiled and nodded. Great family interaction. What's so great about it? Wang Lu questioned. Aba laughed and said, for the inhabitants of the old demon world, this scene is incredible, right? But this is the charm of the new demon world. Here there is no hatred and contradiction. Every day is like a dream. No hatred? Not even with human beings? Wang Lu suddenly asked. Upon hearing this, Aba was startled. Human beings? Yes, could it be that the new demon world has also left behind the hatred with human beings? Wang Lu asked seriously. This was also the question that he really cared about. The prosperity of the new demon world actually had little to do with him. However, if this powerful world still remembered the irreconcilable hatred between the immortals and demons, it would be a huge disaster for 9 regions. Upon hearing this question from Wang Lu, the other lead disciples also raised their spirits and waited for Aba's answer. Even though Aba was only the captain of a city guard, as a resident of the new demon world, his idea was the most representative. Of course. Aba lightly said, even the gray demon and the silver demon can become husband and wife, so what about the hatred between us and human beings? They destroyed our home and slaughtered hundreds of millions of demons. Wang Lu appropriately reminded. But because of this, we also found the new demon world, a world that is far more prosperous than the old demon world. And speaking of slaughter, we have also killed a lot of human beings. Aba said with a slightly serious face, I know that you guys come from the old demon world, and many of your ideas are still the old ideas. But I want to say, if you want to integrate into the new demon world, you must leave behind the hatred of the past, all of it. Because hatred will only continue to breed new hatred, and it will not bring any valuable results. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu was stunned. Was this the line that the demon race would say? It was simply enough to shake one's worldview. But, what if the human beings can't let go of their hatred and take the initiative to seek revenge? Wang Lu continued to ask. You think too much they can't come? Aba laughed and said, the space barrier of the new demon world is unbreakable. The only way to connect to the outside world is to the old demon world. As for other places, even the cultivation base of the demon god can't break the barrier. How could human beings come in? Of course, because of this space barrier we can't enter the 9 regions. But the new demon world is so good, it's simply a dreamlike place. Who would want to go to the human world? I want to thank you. Wang Lu roared inwardly. Since we're already here, we should just take things as they come. We're here to travel, not to apply for a green card. Chapter 467. In the blink of an eye, it had been 2 years since Wang Lu and the others came to the new demon world. Of course, this 2 years was subjective, while the objective time was only 2 days. It was really a group of human cultivators living in the demon race's territory, which could be said to be like a year. The new demon world was indeed a dreamland. In just 2 days, under the guidance of the tour guide Aba, Wang Lu and the others had seen all kinds of incredible things, witnessed a brilliant demon race civilization, and deeply realized how the demon race of the new demon world stood aloof from worldly affairs. However, all of this did not help to solve a real problem. I say, can we still go back? In the residence, Zhou voice seemed a bit depressed. Life in the new demon world was safer and more comfortable than expected. Their disguise was not seen through, and they were still regarded as the remnants of the old demon world, receiving meticulous care. Of course, according to the speculation of Wang Lu and Xianghua, it was also possible that their identity had long been seen through, but the demon race of the new demon world had really let go of their hatred of human beings. Not only they were not hostile, but they also used this way to guide them to integrate into the new demon world. In any case, they could not go back, so they might as well settle here with the identity of the demon race. However, this was not what the 5 of them wanted. In these 2 days, they asked all the people they could ask. Even yesterday, they even asked the city's consultant. The answer they got was that there was no possibility of contact between the new demon world and 9 regions. The answer was simply desperate, so the 5 of them felt like a year. Don't worry, we will definitely go back. Wang Lu said softly. Really? Why are you so confident? You heard the situation yesterday, even the great demon king could not open the space barrier. Do we have to cultivate here until we reach Mahayana stage, cross the heavenly tribulation, and then break through the void? After a series of questions, Zhou realized that her mentality was a bit abnormal. Thus, she raised her spiritual energy and swept her jade mansion, and her immortal heart regained its clarity. Sorry, I lost my composure, I'm just curious. Where does your confidence come from? Wang Lu spread out his hands. Who said I have confidence? I just said a few cheap words to coax a fool. Zhou Mumu shook her head helplessly and then no longer had the interest to talk. At this moment, ABA's laughter came from outside again. Haha, everyone, I'm here again. Wang Lu opened the door curiously. Didn't you say that the tour guide would only last until yesterday? We'll be free to do whatever we want from today onwards? ABA nodded. That's true. But I forgot to tell you something important before I left yesterday, so I had to come here early in the morning to tell you. What is it? During this time you can move around Xanarkand at will. You can even leave the city and go to other places. But you must remember one thing. When you hear the horn in the evening, no matter where you are, you must rush back to the city as soon as possible. Then you must close your doors and rest in the buildings. You must not go out, let alone leave the protection of the city. ABA said very seriously. At the same time he took out a few more rings. This is prepared in case you don't hear the horn. When the horn sounds, the ring will heat up, and you will know that it is time to return to the city immediately. Wang Lu took the ring and asked casually, will there be a military exercise soon? ABA shook his head and denied. The new demon world stands aloof from worldly affairs. We don't even have an army. How can there be a military exercise? We, the guards, only provide daily convenience services. We have never fought with anyone. The reason I want you to return to the city is that every time the horn sounds, something will happen that night. If you don't hide well, you may die without a burial place. Die without a burial place? Wang Lu was even more curious. As he learned more about the new demon world, he felt that it was more and more like a fairyland on earth. All beautiful words could be used to describe it. Die without a burial place seemed too strange. Yes, die without a burial place, ABA reiterated. When the horn sounds, you must return to the city as soon as possible. Otherwise there will be a disaster. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu was baffled. Is this the rule set by the great demon king? This is the rule of the new demon world, ABA said. Every once in a while, when the night falls, the wind of destruction will blow in the new demon world. Any creature walking in the night will be taken away by the wind of destruction. No matter how high your cultivation is or how powerful you are, there is no exception. For example? ABA looked at Wang Lu strangely. This question was really uncomfortable, but he just thought that the people of the old demon world were lacking in etiquette and did not think too much about it. For example, when we first came to the new demon world, when everyone didn't know much about the wind of destruction, there was a royal family who was involved in it. They also didn't survive. Even the royal family couldn't survive? The royal family of the new demon world was different from the two sisters who were struggling at death's door in the old demon world. Each of them had at least the cultivation of the peak of divinity transformation, but they couldn't survive the wind of destruction. This new demon world seemed to have a terrifying side besides its brilliance. But as long as you stay at home when the wind of destruction blows, there will be no problem. Wang Lu asked, but there are billions of creatures in the new demon world and tens of millions of cities. There will always be special circumstances. What if you can't get back to the city in time? ABA said, that kind of situation is rare. The new demon world has been developing under the wind of destruction for 2,000 years. We have all adapted to this rhythm. But if there is really a special situation, use this. As he said this, he took out a round pill from his pocket. If you really can't get back to the city in time and can't find a suitable shelter, take one. Wang Lu looked at the pill curiously and sensed its power with his primordial spirit. The wind of destruction that even a divinity transformation master couldn't survive could be resisted by a small pill. This pill was probably the essence of the new demon world's 2,000 years of civilization. But this time he couldn't find anything mysterious with his primordial spirit. This is a sleeping pill, ABA said. Swallow it and you will fall asleep quickly. Then you can die less painful in your sleep? ABA shook his head repeatedly. No, as long as you sleep, you won't be hurt by the wind of destruction. The wind of destruction will only take away the creatures that are still walking at night. As long as you are asleep, you naturally won't walk. Sleepwalking doesn't count. What's the reason? Wang Lu was even more confused. Whose wind will decide whether to kill by sleeping or not? It doesn't make sense. This is the law of the new demon world. ABA said, don't always think about this question. When we first entered the new demon world, many of our compatriots were curious and insisted on exploring the secrets of the wind of destruction. Every single one of them was a peerless genius at that time, but in the end they all disappeared without leaving behind even their bones. Anyone who dared to walk outside when the wind of destruction was blowing was dead. It was not easy for you to run from the old demon world, the land of destruction. Cherish your life and live your own wonderful life. As he said this, Abia even said earnestly, Lord Advisor said that you are the elites of the demon race. As long as you adapt to life in the new demon world, you will definitely achieve great achievements. You are different from ordinary demons like me who can only be a city guard captain for a lifetime. Don't waste this opportunity. In the next few days you have to be especially careful. In recent years, the wind of destruction has become unstable, and the frequency of its arrival is getting faster and faster. You must remember to listen to the horn of the new demon world. Don't leave the rings that I gave you. With many doubts, Wang Lu sent away the still nagging ABA. Looking back, he saw 4 pairs of equally puzzled eyes. The wind of destruction? Zhan Zai rubbed his chin. It's worth studying. Before his voice fell, his shoulder was patted by Zhou Mumu. The girl smiled sweetly. Well said. You're indeed the lead disciple of the 10,000 Arts sect, which has the best academic research in 9 regions. I support you. You must study it well. Zhan Zai narrowed his eyes. He always felt that Zhou Mumu was up to no good, but he didn't know where her viciousness came from. Qianghua pondered and said, the wind of destruction that comes every few days reminds me of the black tide of the old demon world. Is there any connection between the two? Wang Lu said, Senior Sister Qianghua, you're welcome to study it clearly. Qianghua looked at Wang Lu. The latter's eyes drifted away, seemingly not interested in the wind of destruction. The woman sighed in disappointment and no longer spoke. Indeed, the wind of destruction was not the urgent problem to pay attention to now. The question was, would they really settle here for a long time? The next 2 days were uneventful. Although the new demon world was an amazing paradise for the visitors, there was not much fun. Wang Lu and his team explored Zanarkand aimlessly, but there was still no clue on the way back to 9 regions. This kind of life could be described as a walking dead, and the only relief was the arrival of the wind of destruction. On the 3rd day, the wind of destruction came to the new demon world. In the evening, when Wang Lu was still tasting the demon race snacks in a market in Zanarkand, a mournful horn resounded through the sky. The source of the sound came from the 9th sky. According to ABA, it was a warning from the great sage of the demon race in the central city. After hearing the horn, the rhythm of Zanarkand suddenly changed. The people on the street began to change their direction, and the merchants in the shops began to prepare to close. Of course, because all this had been going on for 2,000 years, people seemed to be in an orderly manner. Even the owner of the food stall where Wang Lu worked was not in a hurry to drive people away. He just hung up a sign that no new guests would be entertained. However, Wang Lu naturally had no appetite, so he hurriedly ate and returned to his residence. When night fell, Zanarkand fell into a dead silence. This city was usually a city that never sleeps and was brightly lit. However, when the wind of destruction came, it was as quiet as a dead city without any light. Because the residents of the new demon world had been accustomed to hiding in their rooms and sleeping when the wind of destruction came. Although in theory, as long as they were in the city, they would not be taken away by the wind of destruction. But after all, it was safer to do both. Moreover, even the great demon king needed to rest, and the arrival of the wind of destruction gave everyone a chance to rest. However, how could Wang Lu have the mood to sleep? In the living room of his residence, Wang Lu and Zhan Zai stood side by side with a smile on their faces. And in front of them, Fairy Qianghua, Zhou Mumu, and Xiang Liang, all looked at these 2 people incredulously. Then they heard Wang Lu excitedly say, Next, the first field investigation of the wind of destruction is about to begin. Chapter 468. Many people said that there was only a fine line between a genius and a madman. As the lead disciple of Kunlun sect, a super sect in the Wanxian League, Zhou Mumu was undoubtedly a genius. However, whenever this genius saw Wang Lu, she felt that Wang Lu was standing on the other side of the line, far away, waving at her. Next, the first field investigation of the wind of destruction is about to begin. Hearing Wang Lu's enthusiastic words, Zhou Mumu could not believe her ears. What did you say? Wang Lu repeated it without changing his tone in the slightest. Are you crazy? Hearing this, Wang Lu smiled without saying anything, while Zhan Zai simply sneered disdainfully. Mortal wisdom. Zhou Mumu ignored Zhan Zai's provocation and anxiously said, It doesn't matter how Zhan Zai wants to die, but Wang Lu, you also want to mess around? We have confirmed the authenticity of the wind of destruction in the past few days. It's not Abi's nonsense, yet you still dare to try it? Do you really think non-phase sword defense is invincible in the world? Thus, even Wang Lu showed a disdainful smile. Mortal wisdom. Before he could finish, Zhou Mumu stepped forward and grabbed his collar. I'm not joking with you. Well, here's the thing. Wang Lu had to elaborate on the field investigation plan that he and Zhan Zai had formulated. The first is the purpose of the investigation. At present, our clues about returning to 9 regions have basically been cut off. No matter who we ask in the new demon world, the answer is that the space barrier of the new demon world is unbreakable. During this period, we have also tried to break through the barrier several times, including the sect's heavenly talisman and other means. It proves that the new demon world is completely isolated from the 9 regions. But I don't think things are desperate, because there are still too many unknown contents waiting to be explored in the new demon world. Maybe the clue to return to 9 regions is hidden in it. And among them, the Wind of Destruction is undoubtedly the most suspicious. Wang Lu explained, according to the legend of the people of the New Devil Realm, all the people who walked under the night sky when the Wind of Destruction came were dead, but no one has ever seen their bones. It was as if they disappeared from the world, even the royal family was no exception. Therefore, I thought that there should be 2 possibilities. The first is that the Wind of Destruction is truly invincible, and even Taoist masters of deity transformation realm can't withstand a single blow. As for the second possibility, I suspect that the Winds of Destruction didn't kill those people, but only teleported them to another place. Teleport to another place? Wang Lu's conjecture caused everyone to be shocked. At first, it seemed like a baseless conjecture, but if one thought about it carefully, it seemed to make a lot of sense. Many incomprehensible situations could be explained with this reason. Then, where do you think the Winds of Destruction might teleport people to? Wang Lu said, no matter where it is, it's always better than this cage-like new demon world. More importantly, it means a breakthrough direction, and it's also the only direction that we can break through at present. The new demon world is full of talented people, but they haven't been able to find the way to the outside world for 2,000 years. I don't think repeating their previous attempts can get any breakthrough results, and the Wind of Destruction is probably the only blind spot of the demon race in the past 2,000 years. That does make sense, but there's no need to rush to risk our lives, right? Of course not, we're going to risk our lives. However, before Wang Lu's voice fell, he heard Qianghua sigh and interrupt. If junior brother Wang Lu wants me to go to the Wind of Destruction to explore the way for you, it's better to give up this idea as soon as possible. Wang Lu gawked for a moment and then looked at Zhan Zai. Senior brother Zai, it seems that we can only start Plan B. Zhan Zai was also quite regretful. Senior sister Qianghua, as the lead disciple of Xingjing sect and the #1 Taoist master of King Pil in the Wanxian League, unexpectedly can't look at the overall situation, and also doesn't have the spirit of academic exploration. It's really regrettable. However, having said that, the 2 of them had obviously expected Qianghua's refusal. Therefore, Zhan Zai immediately took out the backup device from his mustard seed bag. It was a quaint, slightly strange twisted branch, and at the end of the branch hung 2 big eyeballs. If it weren't for the lively breath of life in the branch, this branch would look like a cursed object. What is this? Zhou Mumu asked. Sentry Guard. Zhan Zai replied, it's our 10,000 Arts sect's newly designed immortal props. Its main body is between living and dead, but it has a powerful perception and resonance ability. In the past 2 days, I and junior brother Wang Lu have worked together to further transform it so that its image can be directly projected on the water curtain, so that we don't need to personally establish a connection with it, thus avoiding the risk. Next, as long as we place it outside the city, when the Wind of Destruction comes, we can hide in the house in the city, watch the image sent by the sentry guard from outside the city, and analyze its mystery. Upon hearing this, Zhou Mumu was stunned for a moment, and then she shook her head. This is too whimsical. It's not like this sentry guard props have never been used before. There are also shadows of nothingness and the like among the demon race. If this remote monitoring can analyze the secret of the Wind of Destruction, the demon race would have done it a long time ago. Humph, mortal wisdom. Zhan Zai coldly snorted and then explained, the reason why the demon race's remote monitoring failed is because the moment the Wind of Destruction comes, all the shadows of nothingness will instantly disappear, so there's no time to transmit the message, and there's no wreckage for people to study. But this sentry guard of mine is different from the demon race's outdated products. Its biggest advantage is that the way it transmits information is through resonance, so the image is completely synchronized without any hindrance. At the same time, the frequency of information transmission is very fast, and the sensitivity is also very high, so no details will be missed. As long as the Wind of Destruction comes, I can discover the secret behind it through the sentry guard. This, Jomumu was slightly shaken. If it was just remote monitoring, it didn't seem to be risky and it was very feasible. Alright. But you must be careful, because I have an ominous premonition that great danger seems to be hidden behind the wind of destruction. It's precisely because you have big breasts that you should try it yourself, Wang Lu said. After confirming the plan, the 5 of them began to put it into practice. The principle of the sentry guard was simple, but the practical application was not. An immortal art prop that transmitted information with zero delay, and at the same time ensured that the information was sufficient, required very powerful and precise control of magic. And this was a little difficult for the cultivators of the King Pill. Wang Lu and Zhan Zai alone were not enough to control it, so the other lead disciples had to participate in it. At the same time, due to the great reputation of the Wind of Destruction, all the demons who tried to explore it in the past 2,000 years in the new demon world disappeared without exception, which made this move inevitably a bit risky. Although in theory the 5 of them did not really need the divine sense necklace of the sentry guard, so even if the sentry guard was instantly destroyed, it would not cause a backlash. However, there were exceptions to everything. How could the 5 of them, Taoist masters of the King Pill, rashly try a problem that could make the new demon world helpless for 2,000 years without any risk? However, if they didn't take any risk, did they really have to cultivate to the realm of breaking the void and then consider returning to 9 regions? That was not the way to do it. Therefore, the next thing they did was to arrange the array. The main structure was a circular 5 elements array, with a sentry guard in the center, which resonated with the one that was placed outside the city in advance. After the resonance was established, the 2 round eyes of the sentry guard in the array began to shine, and 2 beams of light were projected on the wall of the room. A trickle of water flowed on the wall, forming a water curtain. A moment later, the light was projected on the water curtain, and the image gradually became clear. Outside the city it was already dark. The new demon world did not have the bright galaxy of 9 regions, nor the bright moon. Even the light in the city had been extinguished. For a time the 5 of them could not see anything. Fortunately, Wang Lu was already prepared. He reached out and touched the array under his feet. A trace of spiritual energy entered the array and was transmitted to the outside of the city by means of resonance. The sentry guard outside the city immediately shone, which was a good insurance measure that Wang Lu had set up before. Once there was no light source, it would automatically illuminate the surroundings. After there was light, the surrounding scene became clear. The new demon world under the curtain of night looked no different from the past. Obviously, the wind of destruction had not really arrived. However, the 5 lead disciples were all focused. Zhan Zai, who presided over the array, had a slight sweat on his forehead. With his Taoist master of the King Pill's golden body without leakages, it could be seen that his mind was very nervous at this time. Under high tension, the concept of time had become distorted. After an unknown period of time, Wang Lu finally saw a trace of abnormality in the water curtain projection. It seems to be coming. Before this, no one had seen the wind of destruction with their own eyes. However, the message that resonated through the sentry guard was filled with an oppressive atmosphere. Something was indeed coming. And just when everyone realized this, the sentry guard in the 5 elements array suddenly exploded. Damn sure enough. Wang Lu and Zhan Zai cursed in unison. At the same time, they changed the array to isolate the sentry guard in the middle. Then, a series of dazzling explosions continued in the 5 elements array. Fortunately, they did not establish a connection with the sentry guard. Otherwise, the backfire would probably be enough to kill anyone present. It was really sudden. Did you guys see anything? After suppressing the backfire, Wang Lu asked the others. However, from Qianghua to Zhou, they all shook their heads. Just now, they just had a premonition that a crisis was coming, but before anything actually happened, the sentry guard had already exploded. Even though they were fully focused, they did not see any clues. Very well, we have already expected this, so start the playback function. After Wang Lu said that, Zhan Zai pointed at the water curtain on the wall. Suddenly, the water curtain set off ripples, and the picture returned to the previous one, but the playback speed was slowed down by thousands of times. This was also the biggest role of the 5 elements array on the ground, to faithfully record all the feedback from the sentry guard for playback. After the playback was slowed down by thousands of times, everyone finally saw a clue in the picture. It was an almost imperceptible grayish-white in the dark night. When that grayish-white was magnified again, Wang Lu's face suddenly changed. This is the spirit of the dead skeleton? That's right. With the memory of the top student of Spirit Sword sect, how could he not remember that this was the spirit of the dead skeleton that he had seen countless times in the black tide of the Western Mountain? This wind of destruction was indeed inextricably linked to the black tide. Chapter 469. After seeing that the grayish-white color was the black tide of the demon world, more mysteries emerged. Why was it the black tide? Then what exactly was the black tide? In fact, since Wang Lu saw the black tide for the first time in the Western Mountain Savage Land, he had been thinking about what exactly the black tide was. Personally experiencing it, Wang Lu only felt that what he saw was the collection of all the evil in the world, which was opposed to all the good, like a curse left by the gods. 9 regions was so big that even if there were some strange scenes in some remote corners, it was not surprising. However, when Wang Lu entered the demon world, he found that the black tide was not unique to 9 regions. Moreover, compared with the black tide in the Savage Land, the black tide in the demon world seemed to be more authentic. Later, the royal family sisters explained that the origin of the black tide was after the destruction of the eternal tree in the demon world, the collapse of the laws of heaven and earth, which made the demon race become crazy and gradually transformed into the undead in the black tide. This statement was somewhat reasonable. However, when Wang Lu entered the new demon world and saw the black tide for the 3rd time, the statement of the royal family sisters was obviously untenable. If the black tide was the product of the collapse of the laws of heaven and earth, then why would there be a black tide in the new demon world where the laws were stable? What was even more inconceivable was that, if the true face of the wind of destruction was the black tide of the demon world, then, how could one not be affected by it just by hiding in the city? What was even more strange was that, according to the people of the new demon world, if it was too late to return to the city, as long as one took the medicine in time and fell asleep, one could resist the damage of the wind of destruction. Wang Lu had been experiencing the black tide in the Western Mountain for nearly a year, but he never felt that he could protect himself by sleeping in the face of the black tide. At the same time, the black tide would not be blocked by mere city walls and buildings. There was another detail problem. According to Wang Lu's initial assumption, the wind of destruction was likely to send people to another space. However, from the feedback of the sentry guard, this hypothesis was undoubtedly wrong. The wind of destruction was worthy of its name, it was a disaster that brought destruction. But because of this, Wang Lu felt strange. Alas, there are more and more problems. After some analysis, Zhou Mumu sighed and was very annoyed. Only Zhan Zai was still in high spirits. There are more and more problems worth studying. Zhou Mumu rolled her eyes at him. She couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on this idiot. We have basically done everything we could do tonight. The sentry guard exploded and we also lost the signal source from the outside world. Do you want to rest first? Qianghua asked with some exhaustion. Wang Lu waved his hand. You guys go rest. I'm going to walk around. Zhou Mumu said in surprise, Hey, didn't I say that it's very dangerous outside? It's not like I'm going out of the city. I'm just taking a walk in the yard. That should be fine, right? Before he could finish, Wang Lu pushed open the door and walked out, ignoring the other 4. Because he had a vague guess in his heart, and he really couldn't wait to verify it. Walking out of the room, Wang Lu came to the garden in the middle of the courtyard, and then walked along the exquisite stone path to another place. The residence that the city consultant arranged for them was in a garden in the city of Zanarkand. The 5 of them lived in a relatively independent courtyard, but the courtyard was not isolated from the rest of the world. Just a wall away from the courtyard, there was also a unique small courtyard, in which lived almost all the demons of considerable status and strength. Of course, these people could also be said to be the nearby monitors arranged by the consultant, but Wang Lu couldn't care so much at this time. After he walked out of the courtyard, he came to the door of the neighbor's house and gently knocked on the door. After Wang Lu knocked on the door, he remembered that he actually didn't prepare a suitable excuse for a midnight visit, so he had to bite the bullet and said, I'm here to check the water meter. Of course, there was no response from the door. Wang Lu sighed, kicked the door open, and went straight into the unusual small courtyard. There were 4 or 5 small buildings in the courtyard, which were unique and ingenious. However, Wang Lu didn't have the leisure to appreciate the mystery. Instead, with a tap of his foot, his figure soared into the air and arrived at the roof of a small building in the middle of the building. His figure then fell down and broke the roof. The location that Wang Lu chose happened to be the bedroom. According to the habit of the demons of the new demon realm to hide in the room to rest when the wind of destruction came, this should be the time for them to sleep. However, when Wang Lu landed on the ground, he saw that there was no one on the bed, only an open quilt. First, he kicked the door, then he broke the roof so even a mortal should have some reaction. However, this demon race expert whose strength was comparable to a Taoist master of Yuanying stage actually didn't have any reaction. Really no one? Wang Lu sighed, jumped out of the bedroom, stood on the roof and looked into the distance. The entire Zanarkand was now shrouded in thick darkness. With Wang Lu's eyesight, he couldn't see the scene more than 100 meters away. Similarly, he couldn't feel any vitality within 100 meters, as if he was in a dead city. Just a few minutes ago, this city was still noisy and crowded. And at this moment, Wang Lu suddenly felt a slight chill in his heart, as if danger was approaching, so he no longer wasted time looking for people. Things had come to this point, what should be seen had been seen. Next, let's go back first. After returning to their own courtyard, Qianghua and others did not rest, but fell into a dispute over the problem of the black tide. For this strange scene, everyone had their own guesses, but no one could come up with a reliable explanation. It was purely the immortals. Seeing Wang Lu enter the house, Zhou Mumu got up and asked, "How is it?" Listening to Zhou Mumu's question, it was obvious that she also realized that Wang Lu went out with a clear purpose, not just for a casual stroll. So Wang Lu sighed and said, "Unexpected." Then he told in detail what he had seen and heard, and it suddenly surprised everyone. Everyone disappeared? If I remember correctly, just when I came back from the food stall, I saw the family in the neighboring building. They were arguing about their children's participation in the Higher Magic Education Zanarkand Unified Exam. After that, I haven't seen them go out. When the wind of destruction comes, they won't go out randomly, but when I broke the door just now, I didn't see anyone. It can't be that they deliberately put on a show to deceive us and sneak away when people are not paying attention. Zhou Mumu shook her head, puzzled. But if that's not the case, could it be that someone took this opportunity to murder him? But speaking of this, Zhou Mumu could feel the absurdity of it herself. Obviously, the mysterious disappearance of the city people is related to the wind of destruction. This is the first time we have experienced the wind of destruction in the new demon world, but for the locals, it has been a tradition that has lasted for 2,000 years. So the best way now is to wait until tomorrow morning to see if the people who disappeared will come back again. Will the people who disappeared come back again? If possible, it is best to monitor them closely, but if they really come back out of thin air and see us uninvited guests trespassing, I am afraid it will cause unnecessary trouble, so let's wait here quietly for now. Well, it seems that we can only wait and see first. In the middle of the night, the 5 chiefs only felt that time was unprecedentedly long, and as time went by, the darkness outside the window seemed to become thicker. Could it be that outside the city wall of Zanarkand, there was really a raging black tide? The horrible scene of the night of hundreds of ghosts in the West Mountain black tide was still fresh in their memory. Even far away they could hear the whispers of the dead. But now there was only absolute silence in their ears. The 5 people waited for a long time with their own questions. Finally, a ray of golden light came from outside the window. The thick darkness had disappeared, and the clear sky returned to the new demon world. At the same time, the neighbor in the next courtyard screamed, "Oh my God, why is the roof broken?" After that, the whole city began to regain its vitality. The voices of thousands of demons gathered together, noisy and clamorous. Compared with the absolute silence last night, it seemed abrupt. Then, after waiting for an entire night, the 5 first leaders finally saw the answer they were looking for. However, the answer was truly inconceivable. If I'm not mistaken, the phenomenon we see is that when the wind of destruction arrives, all the people in Zanarkand will disappear. Then, when the wind of destruction is extinguished, the disappeared people will suddenly reappear. It doesn't make sense, but it seems that this is the truth. Qianghua also sighed, the new demon world is really a dreamlike place. There are too many things that can't be explained with normal logic. Really? I feel that the logic line is getting clearer and clearer. If we use a jigsaw as an analogy, now there are only 1 or 2 pieces left to complete the whole jigsaw. Wang Lu said, clenching the demon jade that symbolized the supreme of the demon world in his hand. But, although there were only 1 or 2 pieces left to complete the jigsaw, how long would it take to gather these 1 or 2 pieces? On this point, even Wang Lu himself did not have enough assurance. And just when Wang Lu was thinking about how to speed up the progress to find the last clue, the clue came to him. "Haha, I'm here to disturb you again." Outside the courtyard, the guard captain Aba's hearty laughter came leisurely. Opening the door, Wang Lu saw the bright smiling face of the demon. "Today I am still entrusted by Sir Advisor, but this time I came to give you something." "Give something? Tickets?" ABA laughed and took out 5 talisman-like pieces of paper from the bag. Tickets for the first game of the Immortal Cup Lightning Ball League. Immortal Cup Lightning Ball League? ABA nodded. Yes, Lightning Ball, the most popular game in Zanarkand and even the entire New Demon World. Our Zanarkand team has always been a powerhouse in the New Demon World. This time, the first game ceremony of the league will also be held here. At that time, even the Demon King will be present. During this period, all the people in Zanarkand who can buy tickets will buy tickets to watch. But I forgot that you guys still know nothing about this. You almost missed this annual event. The Demon King will also be present? Interesting. Wang Lu said softly, then took the tickets from ABA. Thank you, we will definitely go and watch. Chapter 470. After any civilization entered an advanced stage and solved the basic problems of food, clothing, housing, and transportation, the desire for entertainment would become an indispensable part of the overall needs of society. The New Demon Realm was undoubtedly in such an advanced stage of civilization. There were no foreign enemies and no internal troubles. The demons of the New Demon Realm had enough reasons to have crazy entertainment. And the Lightning Ball was the favorite entertainment of the people of the New Demon Realm. In the New Demon Realm, there were no less than 100 officially certified league tournaments every year. Among them, the Eternal Shield Champions League was the most influential and largest tournament. The Lightning Ball teams of the entire New Demon Realm took the Eternal Shield Champions League as the highest honor in their life. And Zanarkand, a city located at the border of the New Demon Realm, was famous for its super lightning ball strength. The star team of Zanarkand had won the league championship more than 10 times in the past 100 years, ranking first in the New Demon Realm. For this, the city master was even rewarded by the Great Demon King. The level of the city was also upgraded by 1 level, becoming one of the top 20 level 2 cities in the New Demon Realm, second only to the 4 major level 1 cities. It was not difficult to imagine the enthusiasm of the residents of Zanarkand for the Lightning Ball. On the 3rd day before the game, the whole city began to boil. On the streets and alleys, the topic of the residents was almost inseparable from the Lightning Ball. Even the food stalls that Wang Lu frequented had launched various Lightning Ball-themed packages. From the powerful and respected great demons to the ordinary residents, the focus of life was the Lightning Ball. What was more fortunate was that the wind of destruction did not come again until the opening ceremony and the opening game of the Lightning Ball League, so the atmosphere of celebration continued. On the day of the game, the temperature of the entire Zanarkand seemed to rise. Before the sky brightened, the clamor had already filled the city. Haha, are you guys ready? Before dawn, ABA hurriedly ran to the door of the courtyard of Wang Lu and others and kept knocking on the door. After Wang Lu opened the door, he saw 5 demons in strange clothes, Ink Clan's ABA and his 4 Feather Clan companions. These 5 guards who were used to wearing armor were now wearing a black and red shirt with a domineering badge on it. There were numbers and names printed on the back. It was obviously the team uniform of the star team of Zanarkand. The New Demon World is truly terrifying. Has civilization already progressed to such a level? Shaking his head, Wang Lu looked at the exuberant face of ABA. At this time, this lively and cheerful guard captain had bloodshot eyes and looked particularly tired. However, his spirit was as excited as if he had taken a forbidden drug. Were it not for the fact that he had seen many such fanatical fans in the city in the past few days, Wang Lu would definitely treat him as if he was possessed by the devil. But now, Wang Lu just sighed and asked, "Isn't the opening ceremony in the evening?" ABA nodded. "But it's almost morning." What is the logical relationship between your two statements? There is less than a day before the opening ceremony. A qualified fan of the Zanarkand Star team should enter the stadium at least half a day in advance to sing the team song and cheer for them. They entered half a day in advance. No matter how much you sing, can they hear you? That's not important. The important thing is, ABA wanted to explain, but as soon as he opened his mouth, he found that he was somewhat at a loss for words. How could he explain the romance of the lightning ball to a wood-like inhabitant of the old demon world? Sai, in your old demon world, there is probably no sport to speak of, so there is no way to understand the charm of the first sport in the new demon world. Wang Lu raised his eyebrows. Of course there is. In fact, although our civilization has withered, we also have a rich variety of sports. Oh? ABA suddenly became interested. What is the most popular sport in your world? The most popular? Wang Lu thought for a moment. Then it should be the piston sport. A sport created to deal with the high mortality rate in extreme environments. Both sides of the sport are composed of a man and a woman. The content is to create love and release passion through friction. A sport that is very suitable for reproduction. Abia didn't really understand. Anyway, since you like sports too, that's for the best. But the piston sport you mentioned is a product of the old demon realm after all. If you want to truly experience the charm of the Eternal Shield Lightning Ball League, come with me. With that, Aba pulled Wang Lu's hand and dragged him out of the door. The four feather friends put on a fancy hat for Wang Lu and put on the Xanarkan Star Team uniform. He dressed exactly like them, and then they shouted and laughed happily like a group of psychopaths. However, during the league, the atmosphere of the entire city was generally like this. Wang Lu thought for a moment and felt that there was no need to be pretentious about this matter. After changing into the team uniform, he began to greet the others. Senior Sister Mumu, you guys come and change your clothes too. ABA and the others have prepared a set for each of us. At the entrance of the courtyard, Zhou Mumu looked at Wang Lu, who had dressed up like a top 10 fan, with disgust. Then she asked with great difficulty, "Don't you feel ashamed?" Wang Lu replied, "When in Rome, do as the Romans do. What's shameful about that? When we watch the game live, the surrounding people will be wearing team uniforms and cheering. Only you, a noble and cold person, will act like a green tea bitch. That's the real shame." Zhou Mumu had nothing to say, and could only obediently change into the team uniform. The strange thing was, when she put on the shirt, she actually felt a magical joy from the bottom of her heart, as if there was a magical power hidden in this team uniform. In Wang Lu's view, it had nothing to do with any mysterious power. It was simply easier to lose moral integrity than to pick it up. With Wang Lu and Zhou Mumu taking the lead, the others also changed their clothes. Not long after, a rather professional-looking Xanarkan fan team was formed. After that, ABA led the way to the Lightning Stadium in the center of the city of Xanarkand, a spherical field floating in mid-air. At this time, there was a sea of people outside the stadium. Thousands of demons gathered here, waiting in a long line to enter. ABA quickly let a few people in through a small door. "Speaking of which, it's all thanks to you. Sir Advisor has prepared first-class tickets for you. In the past, I could only buy second-class seats at best. The queue is long and the seats are not good. This time, it's all thanks to being your tour guide that I have the honor of sitting in the first-class seats." After ABA sighed with emotion, he led everyone to their seats. The first-class seats were very close to the stadium. Everything in the stadium could be seen at a glance. Of course, with the eyesight of the demons, the distance was not important. What was important was that the first-class seats were very close to the most distinguished seats in the stadium. This was the most important reason why Wang Lu was willing to participate in the opening ceremony of the Lightning Ball League. He had no interest in the Lightning Ball League, nor in the traditional culture of Xanarkand. He was not even interested in the fanatical female fans who wore simple clothes on the field. He was only interested in the great demon king who would be there in person. The master of the new demon world, the legendary great demon king who had supreme power, enough to suppress a world. He did not know how useful the magic jade would be when he saw him. After enduring the noise in the stadium for more than half a day with faint expectation, Wang Lu finally waited for the arrival of the new Great Demon King. The Great Demon King's entrance didn't have any earth-shattering grandeur. The stadium only felt the noise suddenly lighten. Then, at the VIP seats in the center, a thick black shadow suddenly expanded and shrank. As it expanded and inhaled, the originally empty VIP seats were filled with a few more people. Most of them were the personal bodyguards of the Great Demon King. In the middle were two noble demons dressed in black heavy armor with blood-red cloaks on their backs. As soon as they appeared, they exuded an amazing aura, which made more than 100,000 demons in the entire stadium feel oppressed. However, the power of the Great Demon King only lasted for a moment, and it was quickly restrained. Just now, it was just a necessary procedure for the arrival of the Great Demon King to show his presence. After that, there was no need to continue to release pressure to dampen the mood. However, it was that short moment of aura that made Wang Lu frown. Strange, why do I feel that the aura is somewhat familiar? Turning his head, he saw several equally solemn faces. Qianghua and the others nodded, expressing that they felt the same way. At this moment, the noise in the stadium became even lower, and the center of the spherical stadium began to change light, indicating that the opening ceremony was about to begin. The first part of the opening ceremony was when the Great Demon King made a speech and personally raised the Eternal Shield. He used the shield to attract the heavenly thunder, turning the entire stadium into a blazing and dazzling ball of lightning. After that, after 10 months of competition, the team with the best performance would be qualified to pick up the shield raised by the Demon King and win enough glory to be treasured for a lifetime. The Demon King of the new demon realm was a leader who paid attention to efficiency. After arriving, he did not want to wait any longer and directly started the opening ceremony of the league. Under the joint gaze of more than 100,000 spectators in the stadium, and 10 times or even 100 times more spectators outside the stadium, the great Demon King stepped out and flashed from the VIP seats to the center of the stadium. The dark and heavy armor did not slow him down in the slightest. Then, standing under the focus of everyone's eyes, the great Demon King slowly took off his helmet mask, revealing a young and beautiful face. The moment the helmet was taken off, Wang Lu, Qianghua, Xiang Liang, Zhou Mumu, and Zhan Zai stood up at the same time looking shocked. Because the face behind the helmet was the elder sister of the royal sisters who had disappeared in the old demon realm. Although the figure was obviously taller than the one in the old demon realm, and the armor was stronger and more gorgeous, the delicate but unconcealable resolute face was the same. Turning his head, the other heavily armored Demon King who was still standing in the VIP seats also took off his helmet. Not surprisingly, it was the younger sister of the pair of sisters. One of the 4 great joys in life was to meet an old friend in a foreign land. However, at this time they were in a foreign country, and they had indeed met an old friend, but Wang Lu and the others could not be happy. Why were the two of them here? Chapter 471. There were many people in the world who were born with similar appearances, so there were countless misunderstandings. But for Taoist King Pil, he would never mistake someone for someone else just because they looked similar. There were too many characteristics that could identify a person. If they all matched, it was hard to think it was a coincidence. Therefore, Wang Lu and others made a judgment in the first place. These 2 demon kings were the royal sisters who disappeared in the old demon realm because they were far away from the wreckage of the eternal tree. But the next question was, why did the 2 sisters who should have died a long time ago appear here? Everyone witnessed the death of the 2 sisters that day, so it couldn't be fake. But at this time, the one standing in the middle of the stadium was undoubtedly the deity. What was even more strange was that the royal sisters died just a few days ago, and these 2 demon kings had been in power for at least more than 100 years. How could this contradiction be explained? More and more, Wang Lu and others fell into deep confusion. Even the process of how the great Demon King announced the start of the league and how he raised the eternal shield to attract the sky thunder, they were indifferent and didn't care. Until a purple-blue thunder fell from the sky and ignited the whole stadium. Countless electric arcs gathered around the stadium, dazzling everyone. The thunder also temporarily interrupted their thoughts. As the eternal shield was raised high, the atmosphere of the stadium was ignited, and the cheers drowned everything. Under the cover of the cheers, Wang Lu quietly left the first-class seat. Iba, who was a guard, had good eyesight. He saw Wang Lu, who was quietly hiding. He wanted to stop him and ask about the situation, but he was soon attracted by the next wave of cheers. It turned out that the great Demon King had raised the shield above the stadium. This meant that the next part of the opening ceremony was about to begin. The performance teams from all over the new demon realm would bring extremely wonderful performances. Abia had been thinking about the team of beautiful dancers from Wuxia City for a long time. As the first team to perform, they had already begun to step onto the stage one after another amidst the cheers. Their coquettish figures instantly attracted Aba's attention. The performance in the stadium would last for a long time until the first game, but Wang Lu knew that he didn't have much time. The great Demon King wouldn't stay for too long. The 2 of them were only there to witness the start of the league tournament. When the great Demon King raised his shield, they would prepare to leave. The following games were of extraordinary significance to the fans, but for the Demon King, he had more important work to deal with. In fact, after the dancers from Wuxia City appeared, the 2 Demon Kings were already ready to leave under the escort of their bodyguards. But at this moment, an uninvited guest arrived, forcing them to stop in their tracks. "Who are you?" After seeing Wang Lu, the great Demon King tilted his head curiously, then waved his hand to dismiss the bodyguards who crowded around him. Under normal circumstances, this kind of person who suddenly appeared in a place where they shouldn't be would be subdued by the bodyguards immediately and then handed over to the corresponding personnel to deal with. The overall atmosphere of the new demon world was indeed harmonious and orderly, but daring to offend the Demon King was definitely a dead end. However, the great Demon King hadn't seen such a suicidal person for many years. Moreover, this ordinary-looking man in front of her had a familiar temperament. So, she decided to put aside the rules for the time being and first understand the inside story. Of course, as the great demon king, this was all she could do. If the other party really didn't know how to appreciate favors, then there was no need for her to continue wasting time. As the demon king who ruled a world, there were countless tasks that required her to put in effort, and the person in front of her was nothing. Wang Lu also knew that his time was limited, so he went straight to the point and took out the demon jade pendant from his chest. How do you feel when you see this? The moment the demon jade appeared, an astonishing amount of heat was emitted from the jade. A ripple spread out, enveloping everyone in the VIP seats. The demon king's bodyguards were somewhat at a loss. According to the rules, they should subdue or even kill Wang Lu at the first instance to ensure the safety of the great demon king, but it was clearly the demon king himself who had ordered them not to make a move for the time being. It was really difficult for them. As for the ripple in the demon jade, it had no effect on them. However, when the ripple reached the two demon kings, they trembled slightly, obviously affected. Then, the tall elder sister suddenly made a move and released a gray space. A gray luster bloomed from the demon king's palm and quickly spread out, enveloping the entire space where the VIP seats were located. The world outside the space froze at this moment, and only the time in the gray space was still flowing. The great demon king looked at Wang Lu with a somewhat complicated gaze and nodded. You came here faster than we expected. Wang Lu smiled when he heard this. He knew that he had made the right bet. After seeing the demon jade, the reactions of the two demon kings were indeed somewhat different. There's no other way. If we don't hurry up, I'm afraid we'll completely adapt to the rhythm of the new demon world. This is indeed a dreamlike paradise that makes people forget to return. Wang Lu's words were not false. The few chief disciples had only lived in the new demon world for less than 10 days, but they had gradually fallen into this new world. Every day they would get up early to enjoy the food of the new demon world in the food stalls, and then walk in the streets and alleys to observe and appreciate the wonders of this new civilization. Life was very fulfilling, simple and happy, which made people vaguely enjoy it and forget to return. The most obvious evidence was the opening ceremony of today's Lightning Ball League. For the people in the other world, no matter how lively the festival was, it had nothing to do with them. So why would they put on their team uniforms, put on colorful hats, and dress up like the local natives to celebrate the opening ceremony? Because imperceptibly they had been assimilated by the new demon world. Wang Lu speculated that if he didn't find the Demon King sisters before the end of the opening ceremony and trigger the key event, sooner or later, the most elite young cultivators in 9 regions would be completely lost in the new demon world and spend the rest of their lives as demons. This land had this kind of magical and incredible magic. Fortunately, you still remembered what we entrusted you to do. As the great Demon King, the elder sister's eyes were a bit complicated. She wanted to say something but hesitated. The younger sister was a bit more straightforward. You have seen the truth, right? Wang Lu smiled and said, a new world with neither foreign enemies nor internal troubles, an incredibly fertile and rich land, a demon race that can put down all disputes and live in harmony, a demon civilization that can evolve to such a level in just 2,000 years. And the wind of destruction that blows every once in a while, and every time the wind of destruction comes, the residents of the new demon world would disappear. Finally, the Demon King sisters who should have died but came back to life. With so many clues coming together, it's hard not to see it. The dreamlike land is actually worthy of its name. Wang Lu paused and looked outside the gray world, at the colorful but stagnant world. Actually, until now, I still find it hard to believe that there is actually a world purely composed of dreams. As a great demon king, the elder sister said softly, this is the last miracle of the demon world. When the eternal tree fell, we tried all kinds of methods, but we couldn't save the situation. No matter how many sacrifices we made, we couldn't protect our home, so, in endless despair, we chose another way. Wang Lu felt the sadness inadvertently revealed in the few words of the great demon king and asked softly, New demon world. Yes, almost all the survivors of the demon world were gathered together, and the demon king led a group of demon monarchs to create a miracle. At that time, the Demon King and the Demon Monarchs used a secret technique that had been passed down since the birth of the demon world civilization, the dream-building technique. Dream-building technique? Simply put, it is the ability to manipulate and create dreams. It is a very magical and rare skill that is only occasionally passed down among the royal families of the demon world. The dream-building technique can create a magnificent dream that looks real, but a dream is just a dream after all. In the eyes of the demons, it doesn't have high practical value, so it has never been taken seriously. It was not until the demon world was facing the crisis of destruction that we ironically discovered that the only thing that could continue the demon civilization was this self-deceiving spell. The demon king sighed and then said, "It's probably a blessing in disguise." In the face of a desperate situation, the demons tried their best to use the dream-building technique and achieved an unprecedented achievement. The dream built by hundreds of millions of surviving demons was almost transformed into an independent and real new plane. This new world carries all our hopes and condenses all the good blessings. The weather here is beautiful and the products are abundant. The surrounding spiritual energy can cleanse people's hearts and make the most ferocious demons docile and harmonious. At this point, Wang Lu couldn't help but interrupt. Many races of the demon race are proud of their bravery in fighting, so why would they dream of such a sweet world? Because in despair, we have painfully reflected that the aggressive nature of the demon race is the culprit that caused all the tragedies. If there were no endless internal strife, we could have conquered the 9 regions during the first great war of immortals and demons, forever eliminating the future trouble. And if it weren't for the fact that we couldn't let go of the deep hatred between the two worlds and continued to fight with human beings, we might not have led to the disaster of the destruction of the demon world. This kind of thinking was indeed cowardly for the demon race. However, when the eternal tree collapsed, the pillar of belief of the demon race also collapsed. And when the new world was established under the guidance of the demon king at that time, the tone of the whole world was set: harmony. Building a harmonious new demon world? Yes, scientific development and harmony of the demon world. This is the strategic policy that the first demon king guided the demon race to complete together. The first demon king was really talented and bold, wise and powerful. Without this policy at that time, I'm afraid there would not be the prosperity of the new demon world today. The current demon king smiled slightly and said, "Prosperity? If you see this scene, would you still think so?" With that, the demon king stretched out his hand and a crack appeared in the void, revealing the scene of another world. In the blood-red and gloomy world, a withered mountain stood quietly on the ground. However, when Wang Lu took a closer look, he couldn't help but be aghast. That mountain was actually piled up by the corpses of tens of thousands of demons. This is the foundation of the new demon world. The demon king lightly said, "Hundreds of millions of creatures sleep here forever, maintaining the existence of the new demon world." Chapter 472. Wang Lu still remembered that he had seen an interesting question a long time ago. How could a person prove that he existed? Because there was a prerequisite to this question. You can't prove that anything actually exists because we can assume that everything around you is an illusion. All your senses are blinded by a brilliant practitioner with magic. What you see, hear, and touch are all illusions and things that don't exist. In this case, you naturally can't prove that anything exists. So, can a person prove that he or she exists? For this question there was once a sage who said, "I think, therefore I am." It means that when I think about this question, that is, when I think about it, the thinking itself must exist, and the act of thinking must have a carrier, that is, the existence of the person who thinks, right? Therefore, the existence of my thinking means that I, the carrier, must also exist, so there is I think, therefore I am. This truth was not absolute, but at this time it seemed to explain everything that Wang Lu saw. I think, therefore I am. The principle of the dream is the same. If there is a dream, there must be a dreamer. A dream world as prosperous and developed as the new demon world must have dreamers who carry the dream. When he guessed that the new demon world was likely to be a dream, Wang Lu began to guess who created this dream. But he did not expect that this person was not a great demon king with an earth-shattering primordial spirit cultivation, but thousands of demons who had once fallen into despair. And seeing the magnificent mountain of corpses displayed by the demon king, many of Wang Lu's speculations were further confirmed. A harmonious new demon world is good, but suppressing the fighting nature of the demons is ultimately against heaven, so there is the wind of destruction, right? The demon king said, "Yes. Every once in a while, our negative emotions such as hostility and resentment, which are forcibly suppressed by the new demon world, will erupt. This force is so powerful that it is no less than the power to create the new demon world. It is enough to interfere with the real world. So it forms the black tide that we often talk about. For the slumbering demons, the arrival of the black tide is like a beautiful dream that suddenly turns into a nightmare. Fortunately, when the nightmare ended, the memory of the nightmare would disappear. However, when the dream switched, the new demon world actually did not exist. During this period, all the people who could not switch their dreams synchronously would be swept away by the nightmare. When the nightmare ends, they won't come back. As the Demon King spoke, he looked at Wang Lu. Fortunately, you didn't go too far when the black tide came a few days ago. At that time, the courtyard that you were in was fixed because of your arrival. The places that were further away were completely destroyed when the dream changed. If you had gone too far, you would have been swallowed by the nightmare. Wang Lu smiled and asked the next question. The cycle of sweet dreams and nightmares lasted for 2,000 years, but it shouldn't last forever, right? The Demon King nodded. That is indeed impossible. This beautiful new demon world is ultimately going against the nature of the demon race. It is going against the heavens. The regular outbreak of the black tide is only a temporary solution. In the past 100 years, the arrival of the black tide has become more and more frequent. Probably one day the black tide will completely devour everything. During this period, we have tried many ways to slow down this process. For example, the large-scale promotion of the lightning ball sport so that the people of the demon realm pour their passion and blood into the sport to slow down the outbreak of the black tide. You see, those fans who are cheering fanatically on the field, they are unusually excited. In fact, we have deliberately guided them to release a little of the darkness in their hearts. The Demon King said and pointed to the 100,000 fans outside the VIP seats. Wang Lu looked at them and indeed felt that the fans were in an abnormal fanaticism. But this is just a drop in the bucket. The darkness that has accumulated for 2,000 years behind the new demon world has accumulated over time. Wang Lu asked again, then what role did you two play during this period? We are the Watchers. The elder sister said helplessly, during the great catastrophe, not all the demons fell into a deep sleep. In the ruins of the eternal tree, some Watchers, our ancestors, were left behind. The task of the Watchers is to survive in the ruins of the real demon realm, to be the inheritor of the demon realm civilization, and to monitor the changes in the new demon realm's dream world. This dream world that has gathered hundreds of millions of creatures has unparalleled power. You should remember the black tide that ravaged the demon realm, right? That is the aftermath of the nightmare of hundreds of millions of creatures. The ancestors did not dare to let the dream world develop on its own, so they left us behind. If one day the dream world is on the verge of collapse and make us a big disaster, we will wake up the dream world. So now you are? Wang Lu asked hesitantly. We should be regarded as the fallen. The elder sister explained bitterly, the ancestors left us behind in the hope that we can monitor and balance the dream world. But as the situation of the demon realm got worse and worse, the Watchers became more and more desperate. And this despair will be captured and attracted by the dream world. Hundreds of years ago, there were constantly Watchers who were attracted to the dream world and became a member of the new demon realm. They enjoyed the beautiful dreamlike life and completely forgot the duties of the Watchers. And in our generation, even from the moment we were born, some of us were pulled into the new demon realm and played the corresponding role. We have to rely on the power of the ruins of the eternal tree to barely resist the gravity of the dream world and maintain our self-consciousness. Unfortunately, in order to send you out of the demon realm, we lost the protection of the eternal tree and finally fell completely. At this point, the Watchers in the demon realm are completely extinct. Wang Lu was stunned when he heard this. So it's my fault? The elder sister shook her head and said, even without your appearance, my sister and I would not be able to hold on for a few years. But now that I think about it, maybe we should have let go of our persistence long ago so that we could enjoy a few more years of beautiful dream world life. But now, the collapse of the new demon realm is not far away. In at most 10 years, the replacement of the new demon realm and the black tide will completely collapse, and this time no one can even wake us up. We can only watch the black tide break out of the cage of the dream world and completely devour everything, including the demon realm and the wider world. Wang Lu waved his hand. Okay, no need to go so far. Let's get straight to the point. You want us to help, right? You are the only ones who can stop this from happening. The elder sister said, there are no longer any creatures in the demon realm. We have completely transformed into dream world creatures, and it is impossible for us to wake up and change our fate. But you are different. You are still alive. As long as you can resuscitation from the dream world, it is possible to wake all of us from the outside and end the black tide. What is the specific method? Wang Lu said, the space barrier of the new demon realm is unbreakable. Obviously, it was created by your ancestors to maintain stability when they constructed the dream world. If we want a resuscitation from this dream world, I am afraid we have to cultivate until we reach the shattering realm. If the new demon realm is in its complete state, it is true that only a cultivator who has ascended to the ascension realm can break through the dream world. But there is a flaw in the transition between the new demon realm and the black tide. If you can grasp the flaw, you can break through the dream world and resuscitation in reality. Grasp the flaw in the transition between the new demon realm and the black tide? How do we do that? We are not sure. The elder sister, the great demon king, shook her head irresponsibly. We are just characters in the dream world. How do we know how to wake up from the dream world? The clues we can provide are only this much. The rest depends on your own efforts. With such an answer, Wang Lu was too lazy to complain. He got up and left. The great demon king then reached out to erase the gray space. Thus, the stop time flowed again, and Wang Lu's ears once again heard the earth-shaking noise. The demon king and the sisters in the VIP seats had disappeared without a trace. When they returned to their original seats, the song and dance performance in the middle of the stadium had not yet ended. ABA and his 4 companions were shouting with red eyes. Their mental state was stimulated by the dancing girls' thighs that were sometimes raised high. They even completely ignored the dignified face of Wang Lu who had returned. What's wrong? Zhou was attentive. She could tell at a glance that Wang Lu had something on his mind. I just experienced an unexpected romantic encounter. Wang Lu sighed and then told her what happened just now in great detail. When they learned that the essence of the new demon realm was actually a dream world, even the few chief disciples who were experienced and knowledgeable felt that it was inconceivable. But more importantly, how could they seize the gap between the transition between sweet dreams and nightmares? Based on the previous situation, there is indeed a gap between the two dream worlds. After pondering for a long time, Qianghua said, previously when we used the sentry guard to explore the situation outside, we captured the figure of the undead skeleton at the moment when the sentry guard was destroyed. I think that is the flaw that the Demon King mentioned. Wang Lu said, the timing can be determined, but what do we need to do in that instant to wake up from the dream? This is the problem. It's very simple. Qianghua once again opened her mouth, seized that moment and used the Kill Immortal sword to cut a path to the 9 regions. Senior Sister Qianghua is really simple and crude. The simplest is often the most effective. Moreover, do you remember how we entered this world? We were originally at the edge of the demon realm, but we were unknowingly pulled into the dream world. It seems that the dream world of the new demon realm has expanded to an incredible level in the past 2,000 years, and it will soon swallow up the entire demon realm. Previously, when we entered the demon realm, we couldn't leave, mostly because of this layer of interference. In this case, even if we managed to resuscitation from the dream world, it would be nothing more than returning to the demon realm again, still trapped in the dream world. Therefore, if we want to do it, we must do it in one go, directly break free from the cage of this dream world and return to 9 regions. Wang Lu said, the idea is a good idea, but Senior Sister Qianghua, if I remember correctly, your Kill Immortal sword is inhabited by the creatures of the demon realm, so it can only cut a path to the demon realm. As for the path to 9 regions, how are you going to cut it? Qianghua just smiled and said nothing. That smile, however, sent chills down one's spine. Chapter 473. This was the consensus of the several people present. Those who could become the lead disciple of one of the 5 uniques were not simple people. They knew very well what could really make a person stand in today's world. Therefore, Wang Lu never cared if people scolded him for having no moral integrity. Zhou Mumu also didn't care if people accused her of being pedantic, and Zhan Zai turned a deaf ear to the curse that he would be single for a lifetime. This was the privilege of being a genius cultivator and the lead disciple. However, now Qianghua showed that she was a person who did not care about trifles, which made people shudder. The meaning hidden behind the smile was actually obvious. The Kill Immortal sword housed hundreds of millions of demon world creatures. Therefore, Qianghua had a way to come to the demon world from 9 regions. At the same time, she certainly would not forget to prepare to go back. In other words, the Kill Immortal sword also housed the creatures of 9 regions. Of course, with Qianghua's temperament and means, she would not kill innocent people. Most of the people who were housed in the sword were evil people. Since her debut, Qianghua had taken the task of killing demons as her duty, and the number of souls that were killed by her sword was already countless. In terms of the number of people killed, except for Xiang Liang, the other 3 lead disciples combined might not even be as many as Qianghua. It was easy to accumulate some souls that could be used to lead the way. However, Wang Lu did not like the indifference shown by Qianghua at this time, because behind this indifference was Qianghua's incomparably arrogant attitude, which was a contempt for life. This lead disciple fairy seemed to regard herself as a high and mighty ruler. Her mission was to look as far as possible, and the so-called mortals were just a negligible number in her view. And for this kind of idea, Wang Lu was really disgusted, because he never liked others to plagiarize his ideas. However, at this point, whether he liked it or disliked it, Xionghua's Kill Immortal sword undoubtedly pointed the way home for the 5 lead disciples. The next question was, should they gamble on this? I think everyone should have no objection to this, right? Wang Lu asked while turning his head to look at the other 4 people. Of course, it was unanimously approved. The next step is to determine the time. I think the next black tide will be a good time. Time is of the essence. Xianghua was the first to support him. I agree. In this new demon world, the longer we stay here, the stronger the binding force will be. After all, our cultivations are still lacking. If we stay here for too long in the King Pill realm, we will inevitably be assimilated. Zhou spread her hands. Since you've said so, I have no objections. Xiang Liang said concisely, I agree. Zhan Zai was a little reluctant to leave. I really can't bear to leave so soon. There are too many secrets waiting for me to explore. But academic researchers don't act pretentiously. Maybe next time. After the time was set, the 5 of them felt relieved. The biggest problem had been solved. It was a rare time to rest and recuperate before the arrival of the next black tide. During this period of time, he had to adjust himself to his best condition. Hey, the game is about to start. Just when they were ready to seize the time to meditate, Wang Lu suddenly pointed to the center of the field. At this time, the last performing team was quickly walking off the stage. The first match of the league tournament was about to begin. I'm really looking forward to it, Wang Lu said, obviously showing an eager expression. Zhou curled her lips and said, Hey, aren't you too playful? Qianghua knew Wang Lu better. She smiled and said, Is junior brother Wang Lu planning to seriously observe and learn, and then popularize it when we return to 9 regions? Wang Lu nodded his head. He had to admit that if not for the fact that his position was too different from Qianghua's, the 2 of them were actually quite close friends. Although the essence of this new demon world is just a dream, it is a dream built by hundreds of millions of demons for 2,000 years. In terms of social form, the new demon world is more mature than the 9 regions. Many things here can be regarded as advanced experience. Especially the entertainment of the new demon world, which is the crystallization of quite fierce market competition. After returning to 9 regions, as long as some transformation is done according to the local conditions, it will promote a revolution in the entertainment industry. Zhou looked at Wang Lu somewhat incomprehensibly. It was difficult to understand his theory, and also difficult to understand why he had the leisure to pay attention to the entertainment industry revolution. Not only the lightning ball. In the last few days, I will try my best to learn all the advanced experience of the new demon world. Then, when I return to 9 regions, I will finance a new firm from the mysterious Sky Mansion in the name of Wisdom Sect, and then try my best to imitate it. I've even designed the company's mascot. Isn't that a penguin? It's a penguin, isn't it cute? By imitating the advanced, coupled with my big penguin as the symbol, this firm will certainly have a promising future and grow into a large-scale empire. Regarding Wang Lu's beautiful imagination, Zhou just chuckled. At the same time, she secretly admired this guy's mentality, which was simply unmatched. In any case, in a few days they would have to risk their lives. She really couldn't figure out why this guy wasn't nervous at all. The next match of the Lightning Ball League could be said to be extremely wonderful, which was an eye-opener. The members of the participating team were impressively all demon generals, with the strength of a Taoist master of King Pill in 9 regions. This was also the highest level of confrontation in the multi-level league of the Lightning Ball League. In order to better reflect the confrontation and viewing value, the Lightning Ball League had a strict level definition. Demons with different cultivation level would not be assigned to the same level of competition. In the multi-level league, the demon general level was the highest. It was not that there was no competition with higher strength, but it was just a small exchange between each other, not a public entertainment. And the demon general level competition was also the most exciting. It could be imagined that a group of Taoist masters of King Pill would fiercely fight in the water ball, which was comparable to the Tiani True Water. Each of them would use their wonderful skills to compete for the water ball and strive to send the water ball to the opponent's goal. The first match of the league went on for a full hour. The longer it went on, the stronger the appeal on the field. In the final stage of the game, even Zhou who was not interested in the game, could not help but cheer for the players in the field. In the end, the home team of Xanarkand defeated their most powerful competitor, the Luca City Star team, with a score of 7-4, which won the applause of the audience and raised the Eternal Shield high. Of course, this was only a special reward for the first victory. The real Eternal Shield would not be given to the winner until the end of the league. After the game, Wang Lu and the others left the field with the crowd. When they returned to their temporary residence, the celebratory atmosphere cooled down a bit. Among them, Zhou Mumu's feelings were the most complicated. If we don't have a clear goal, I think it won't take long for us to get lost here. Wang Lu also sighed. It's indeed a beautiful world that people can't bear to destroy. When it came to this topic, the atmosphere suddenly cooled down. According to the plan, when the black tide came, Qianghua would cut the way with the kill immortal sword. And after leaving the new demon world, they still had an important thing to do: wake up the hundreds of millions of sleepers and end the 2,000 years of dream. This was mainly to prevent the spread and outbreak of the black tide. If left unchecked, the black tide would one day engulf everything and bring disaster to 9 regions that was no less than the Great War of Immortals and Demons. However, when the dream resuscitation came, this magnificent civilization that had been developed for 2,000 years would also disappear. Wang Lu planned to set up a business in 9 regions to imitate the entertainment activities of the new demon world. How could he not feel sorry for the scene of destruction and try to leave something behind? In the silence, Qianghua said, "Well, let's go back and rest first and adjust our immortal heart. After a game, I think everyone's mentality is a bit unstable." This time, even Wang Lu did not object. The next black tide would come after a long time. The essence of the black tide was the revival of the killing instinct of the demon race that had been suppressed in the new demon world. However, in the past few days, the Lightning Ball League was a good way to vent the negative feelings accumulated in the new demon world and delayed the time of the next black tide. However, the black tide finally came. The method of using the lightning ball to vent the negative emotions of the demon race was, after all, a temporary solution. In the evening, a mournful horn sounded in the sky, which was a warning issued by the Demon King for his people. When the horn sounded, the demons of the new demon world hid in their homes, and the noisy world suddenly became quiet. At the same time, Wang Lu and the others did the opposite. They walked out of the small courtyard and went all the way out of the city. The guards who usually guarded the city gate had already hidden in the barracks to rest. The huge city gate was actually unguarded, allowing people to come and go. The group of people walked all the way to the wilderness. At this time, the sky was as dark as ink. The starry light that once shone in the night was completely hidden, and the air was filled with a fishy smell, which made people feel depressed. Qianghua took the lead. Her kill immortal sword emitted a bloody light in the darkness, which dispelled the depression in everyone's heart. When the black tide came, Qianghua would use the kill immortal sword to cut open the space and open a safe passage directly to 9 regions. For this sword strike, Qianghua had previously sacrificed her sword for 3 days and 3 nights, even burning her own innate vitality. The resonance with the kill immortal sword had reached its peak at this stage. Just as everyone stood still and prepared to welcome the arrival of the black tide, the sky collapsed. Being wrapped in darkness, this was the most intuitive feeling of the several people. Although it was dark all around and they could not see any change, it was as if there was a world falling rapidly on top of their heads. In the blink of an eye, these several Taoist masters of King Pill would be crushed into powder. However, in this blink of an eye, Qianghua's kill immortal sword had already slashed out. The sword light moved forward and went straight to the sky. The sword light bloomed, and the tens of millions of souls wailed in unison. This was the result of Qianghua's illustrious battle of slaying demons and devils. These souls were all extremely vicious and evil when they were alive. After they died, they turned into fierce ghosts in the kill immortal sword. Their fierceness was also particularly fierce. As the sword light shone, the tens of millions of souls actually found a point in the void. "Go!" Qianghua coldly shouted, and the power of the kill immortal sword further broke out. The sea of blood that she learned from the battle for the 5 blood spirits crown once again surged out, forcing back the black tide. The other 4 people didn't say anything and immediately walked into the void along with the sword light. Qianghua herself was responsible for bringing up the rear. When Xiang Liang walked into the void, she turned the sword light and the surging sea of blood was taken back into the sword. The black tide, which was stimulated by the sea of blood, rushed over even more violently. However, Qianghua had already closed the space gap at the same time when the sea of blood converged, leaving only a confident back view in the new demon world. Turning around, Qianghua saw a group of people in the gap between worlds. If there were no coordinates here, even a cultivator with great magical ability would fall. However, there was a line under Qianghua's feet, and the other end was in a distant place, which was the direction of 9 regions. Qianghua smiled slightly. "Okay, then we just need to, where's Wang Lu?" When she took a closer look, Qianghua found that everyone else was there, only Wang Lu was missing. Chapter 474. Where's Wang Lu? As soon as she noticed that Wang Lu had disappeared, Qianghua felt her heart tightened and quickly asked the others, especially Zhou Mumu. Zhou Mumu, who had the best friendship with Wang Lu, opened her mouth, but she seemed somewhat confused. He disappeared in the blink of an eye. Disappeared? He was the first to enter the void and I was right behind him. However, when I stepped into the void I could only see half of his body. The other half was hidden in the void, and it looked like he had been split into two. Then he said to me. When Zhou Mumu said this, she subconsciously swallowed and then said, he said that he forgot something and wanted to go back and get it. None of the 4 people present could say anything. He forgot something and wanted to go back and get it? Could it be that he forgot his brain? Did he know how much Qianghua had paid to find a gap in the new demon world that was known to be forever unbreakable and cut open this path? In order to open this path, Qianghua herself took the risk of being bitten by the kill immortal sword, and the others also exposed themselves to the pressure of the black tide. He almost risked his life to finally seize the opportunity to break through. After escaping from the cage of the new demon world with great difficulty, he actually turned back? After a long time, Qianghua said, Wang Lu habitually does things unexpectedly, but every time he has his own considerations. He will not walk on the road to death. I think this time he should have something that he doesn't want us to know. Zhou Mumu asked, with his thick skin, even if he runs naked in front of us, I'm afraid he won't change his expression. What is it that he needs to hide from all of us? Qianghua did not answer but lightly said, this place is full of void turbulence, so it's not good to stay here for a long time. Moreover, my guiding clue can't last too long, so let's go back to 9 regions first and discuss the other things later. Hey, do you want to leave Wang Lu here? Qianghua asked, are you willing to stay with him? Zhou Mumu was tongue-tied. Even though her relationship with Wang Lu was good, it was far from the point where they were sworn brothers of life and death. Furthermore, as the lead disciple of Kunlun, she could not be so impulsive. But at least he's our teammate. Let's wait for a while, Qianghua said again. Do you think his problem can be solved in a short time? If not, what's the point of us waiting here for a while? Zhou Mumu was speechless. The only voice of opposition disappeared, and the itinerary of the 4 people was set. With Qianghua leading the way with the kill immortal sword, they returned to 9 regions from the turbulent void. The entire journey was silent. The cultivation of the King Pill cultivator was still far from being able to freely travel through the boundless universe. Qianghua also had to rely on a number of immortal sect's supreme treasures to firmly grasp the kill immortal sword. The other 3 followed closely behind, but they also had no time to pay attention to anything else. No one mentioned anything about Wang Lu again. Qianghua, who was walking at the front, sighed silently in her heart. Unlike the others, she, more or less, guessed the intention of Wang Lu's trip. For him, it would be an extremely difficult choice, but she believed that Wang Lu would be able to complete it well. Although the relationship between the two was not good, Qianghua would never underestimate Wang Lu. He was a teammate who never let people down. On the other side, after separating from the main team, Wang Lu did have a task that he had to complete alone. The familiar land, the familiar air. Setting foot on a bloody plain, Wang Lu could not help but sigh with emotion. Just half a month ago he broke through the void from 9 regions and came here. He thought that he would see a world with a very different civilization, but as powerful as 9 regions. Unexpectedly, all he could see was a wasteland. Demon world. Wang Lu returned to the demon world. Qianghua cut through the space with the kill immortal sword and opened a path to 9 regions. However, Wang Lu was not in a hurry to return to 9 regions. Instead, he returned to the demon world from the void. Of course, when he entered the demon world, he was once again imprisoned and bound by the special structure of the new demon world. At this time, breathing the familiar air and stepping on the familiar land, Wang Lu could clearly feel that his connection with 9 regions was once again cut off, and all kinds of props, including Spirit Sword Heavenly Talisman, had lost their effect. But it didn't matter. This time he was ready to revisit his hometown. The sky was still filled with rolling blood clouds. It stood to reason that when he followed Qianghua to break through the encirclement, the black tide came. However, the black tide was only everywhere in the new demon world and could not completely cover the demon world. At least in a certain place, it was a forbidden area that the black tide would never approach. From the new demon world to the void, and from the void to the demon world, Wang Lu only took 2 steps, but these 2 steps condensed the essence of his cultivation base as Taoist Master King Pill. Each step contained endless calculation and the use of a considerable number of magical treasures. Otherwise, how could he have arrived at this place from the void in a single step? Wang Lu looked up and saw a mountain in front of him. A mountain piled up by the corpses of thousands of creatures. It was also the main body of the new demon world. Next, Wang Lu whispered to himself and stepped forward. At the same time, he put his right hand into his bosom and clenched the already hot demon jade. Next, it was time to make a choice. He went through a lot of trouble and took a huge risk to come here just for this thing, to awaken the demon race's millennium dream. As long as the demon race's dream was not awakened, the black tide in the dream would continue to brew and expand, and eventually become a disaster that could endanger the 9 regions. However, if he wanted to resuscitate the dream, it meant the destruction of the new demon world. Although it was just a dream, it was the most magnificent dream that Wang Lu had ever seen. If he really wanted to destroy it, Wang Lu couldn't bear it, because it was not a simple dream. After 2,000 years of development, the new demon world had become an independent existence. Everyone in it was a living creature of flesh and blood. Moreover, they were peace-loving, hard-working, and intelligent. In the new demon world, even Xianghua, who was slightly extreme in the face of the division between immortal and demon, could not help but put down her killing intent and could not make a move against the residents. It was really an intoxicating place. But now, he had to awaken the dream and make the hundreds of millions of creatures in the new demon world die without a burial place in the collapse of the space? Wang Lu did not want to bear this sin, but now it seemed that he had no choice. Even if he didn't do it himself, after a few years or decades, the new demon world would still collapse. Understanding this, Wang Lu immediately suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and continued to move forward. The way to awaken the dream was very simple. As long as he made full use of the ruling effect of the demon jade, it would be enough. Although after the destruction of the eternal tree, the demon jade had lost its effect of ruling the world, Wang Lu believed that for the mountain of corpses in front of him, the demon jade still had some effect. And what he had to do was to order these creatures to wake up. Wang Lu was not sure whether the demon in the black fog in the group of immortal tombs gave him the demon jade for this reason, but now it seemed that it could come in handy. However, just as Wang Lu was about to stimulate the power of the demon jade, an unusually loud voice suddenly sounded under him. I seem to smell a familiar smell. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu was stunned and then looked at his feet, because the sound came from his feet. Enissi, you actually woke up? The howling demon Enissi that he found in the library of Kunlun Immortal Mountain was the trump card that Wang Lu prepared to return to 9 regions from the demon world. However, the situation changed too fast. First, the situation in the demon world was beyond expectation. Later, Wang Lu found out that after entering the demon world, Enissi was in a coma, as if it was in suspended animation and completely lost its function. This was normal. Enissi was an ancient remnant that lived tens of thousands of years ago. In the current demon world, the laws had collapsed and the atmosphere was in disorder, which was no longer suitable for survival. Especially since the air here seemed to be highly toxic to the demon race, Enissi, who only had a mouth left, naturally could not hold on. He thought that this mouth would be in a coma all the way back to 9 regions or even not wake up. Unexpectedly, it woke up at this time. However, even if it woke up, it would be useless. When Wang Lu was about to ignore Enissi, he heard Enissi exclaim again, "Yes, I do smell the breath of my fellow demon. Master, have we returned to the demon world?" "Yes, this is the smell of the demon world. Although there has been a great change, I will never mistake the smell of my hometown." Feeling the surging under his feet, Wang Lu lifted his foot, and Enissi immediately fluttered in the air like a withered leaf in the wind, cheering. "Haha, I'm home. I'm finally home." Wang Lu sighed inwardly. Home is indeed home, but with the vicissitudes of life, your hometown has been reduced to ruins. Sure enough, it didn't take long for Enissi's cheers to subside and be replaced by deep doubts. "Master, why do I feel that my hometown seems to have changed a lot, and it's lifeless?" Enissi, who had lost almost all of its physical organs in the battle of immortals and demons, naturally could not see and perceive the earth-shaking changes in the demon world. However, after the ecstasy subsided, it finally noticed the abnormality from its only perception. Wang Lu went straight to the point. "The demon world is finished." "Finished?" Enissi was stunned. After a long time it asked, "Master, you said it's finished? What do you mean?" Wang Lu said faintly, "The eternal tree was destroyed, the laws of heaven and earth of the demon world collapsed, and everyone died. This is impossible." Hennessy exclaimed, "I just smelled the smell of my fellow demon." "Smell again? Didn't you smell the smell of corpses?" "I?" Hennessy's voice once again became low. Being in front of the mountain of corpses, how could it not smell the strong and almost suffocating corpse smell? It was just that Hennessy didn't want to think about this possibility at all. It only focused on the remaining trace of life in the corpse smell. Just when Wang Lu thought that Hennessy had accepted its fate, the howling demon roared again, "This is impossible. I don't believe that the demon race will be extinct like this. Flash demon, stand up. I order you to appear in front of me immediately, right now." In the demon world 10,000 years ago, the Flash demon was regarded as the subordinate race of the howling demon. They would obey the call of the main race. However, in the current demon world, how could there be any Flash demon that could respond to the call? "Flash demon, are you going to rebel?" "I'm back, it's me." Hennessy roared with all its might. After a while, blood spilled out of its mouth, but it still refused to stop. Then, "Mist Demon, where is the Mist Demon? Mist Demon, come out. You can't be extinct like this. I know you are still alive, come out." Boom. Hennessy's roar pierced through the sky, and the fire clouds in the sky were shaken away by the roar. The howling demon really lived up to its reputation. But no matter how loud the roar was, could it bring the dead back to life? Just as Wang Lu shook his head, he suddenly saw a bump on the mountain of corpses in front of him trembled slightly. A corpse that had been sleeping for 2,000 years suddenly stood up. Chapter 475. Wang Lu really felt that it was an eye-opener. It was not uncommon for the dead to come back to life, but it was rare for a corpse that had been dead for 2,000 years to be awakened by a roar. What's more, it was awakened by the roar, and it was a demon that should have been sleeping forever. This was simply resurrection from the dead. Hennessy, as the magical ability of the Howling clan, was indeed not a trivial matter. However, Wang Lu was more interested in what happened next. On the corpse mountain, no one knew whether it was a coincidence or some other reason, but a corpse responded to Hennessy's call and resuscitation from its sleep. Resuscitation of a single person did not have any effect on the new demon realm. The rest of the corpses were still in a long sleep. On the corpse mountain, this upright corpse seemed abnormally conspicuous. Hennessy noticed its resuscitation, and it immediately floated over and came to the front of the corpse. "Sure enough, someone is still alive. You quickly tell me what happened to the demon realm?" At this time, Hennessy didn't even care about the existence of its master. And Wang Lu didn't mind. He just strolled to the corpse mountain and came to the side of the corpse. Under such circumstances, it was really incredible that someone could resurrect the dead. This corpse must be a great person when it was alive. However, it could be seen that this was only the final radiance of the setting sun, because after leaving the corpse mountain dream, this tall corpse was rotting at an alarming rate. However, before it completely rotted, it still had the ability to speak. Demon realm? The consciousness of the corpse that was just resuscitation was still a little fuzzy. After a while, it sighed faintly, "The demon realm no longer exists." Hearing this, Hennessy finally gave up its fantasy, and its whole body became sluggish. Seeing that there was no other problem, the corpse that was awakened was ready to fall back to sleep. However, Hennessy suddenly asked, "Did we lose?" "Yes." The corpse replied calmly. "I see." Hennessy's voice was bitter. He only had his mouth left and he didn't even have eyes. Naturally, there was no tearful scene, but the pain in his voice was empathizing. "Did we resist until the last moment? Even though we've lost, we're still glorious warriors, aren't we?" Hearing this question, the corpse hesitated for a moment before replying, "We didn't resist to the end because it was too unwise." Hennessy was stunned when he heard that. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. "You're saying, we didn't resist to the end? Because it's unwise? What do you mean by that?" The corpse briefly explained the cataclysm that happened 2,000 years ago, and then concluded, "In short, in the face of the crisis of the entire demon world, there is no point in showing off one's courage. So in the end, we created a dream together and built a new kingdom in the dream." Ridiculous. Ridiculous. This is utterly ridiculous. Hennessy angrily interrupted him. "What do you mean by the courage of an ordinary man is meaningless? What did he mean by resisting to the end was unwise? Such words are simply a disgrace to the fiend race. This is the consensus of all of us." However, the corpse was very calm. When there is a chance of victory, fighting bravely is worth advocating. But if you have no chance of winning at all, you should choose to give up wisely. Then hide in your dreams and be a coward for the rest of your life? What the hell are you? You are definitely not the fiend race, because I don't believe that my descendants will become such trash. In the past, even if we faced an opponent that was impossible to defeat, we still held our heads high until the last moment. Because that is the attitude that the fiend race should have. The corpse was somewhat puzzled. But that's not rational. Rational? That's a toy that humans are interested in. The fiend race never needs any rationality. What we need is honor and dignity. Hennessy kept roaring, and because of its hoarse voice, it kept spitting out blood from its mouth. But it didn't intend to stop at all. Who made the decision? Who dares to lead the fiend race into such a humiliating path? Let him come out to see me. The resurrected corpse was obviously a little embarrassed and stood motionless in the same place. Call your leader out to see me. While roaring, Hennessy began to spit out blood. Obviously, its power didn't allow it to be so violent, but it was also obvious that it didn't care about its own life and death. In the end, until Hennessy's strength was exhausted and it fell to the ground unwillingly, the corpse mountain's leader didn't appear. Even the corpse that was awakened by the roar turned into ashes under the collapse of the law, leaving no useful clues. Hennessy was lying on the ground, dying, but its mouth was still murmuring. I don't believe that this is the end. Hiding in the dream to continue the civilization? That's a joke. Master, tell me this is not the end. Wang Lu sighed softly. Of course this is not the end. Everything has just begun. Is that so? Then I'm relieved. We, the fiend race, should not be so cowardly. After saying that, the noisy howling race finally fell silent. And Wang Lu fell into a long silence. Previously, letting Hennessy out was purely a matter of convenience. He didn't think too much about it, but after Hennessy finished its roar, Wang Lu had a doubt in his mind. 2,000 years ago, facing the crisis of life and death, the fiend race chose to hide in the dream. It was a good move, but now it seemed that there were indeed many things that couldn't be explained. Wang Lu didn't dare to say that he had a deep understanding of the fiend race, but from the records of the two great wars of immortals and demons, at least one thing was clear. The fiend race was a particularly unyielding creature. Even the relatively cunning and changeable races were no exception. So, in the face of the collapse of the demon realm, these creatures who would rather die than fight actually wisely chose not to fight? From a human's point of view, hiding in the dream was understandable, but Hennessy's roar before its death made Wang Lu more aware that he couldn't measure the behavior of the fiend race by human standards. From the perspective of the fiend race, in the face of a desperate situation, the normal choice should be to fight to the end until death. As for turning over and hiding in the dream, it was really not in line with their aesthetics. Of course, among the hundreds of millions of fiend race creatures, it was inevitable that there would be a few exceptions. However, the towering mountain of corpses in front of him was obviously the path that the vast majority of the hundreds of millions of fiend race creatures chose. This was indeed a bit abnormal. After realizing the problem, Wang Lu fell into a deeper contradiction. As a professional adventurer, it was impossible for him to turn a blind eye to an important branch in front of him. However, at this time he didn't want to complicate the issue, especially this branch, which was a bit too difficult for him at present. He had just been promoted to Taoist Master King Pill, so he couldn't bear the responsibility of finding the truth of the world. Wang Lu paced back and forth on the mountain of corpses. After hesitating for a long time, he still couldn't make a decision. This was really rare for Wang Lu, who had always been decisive. In Spirit Sword Mountain, he wouldn't even blink an eye if he took the initiative to report his master's evil deeds to the sect leader. But now, it was really difficult to make a choice. Originally, I just wanted to call for a bed, I didn't intend to go deep into it. Finally, Wang Lu looked up and sighed. Then, the sword of Mount Kuan drilled out of his palm and waved it twice in the air. Sword chi crisscrossed and bombarded the mountain of corpses, but it only aroused layers of ripples. This mountain of corpses that had existed for 2,000 years had evolved into a very high-level magical treasure, which was impervious to all kinds of evil and invulnerable to all kinds of methods. With Wang Lu's current cultivation base, he could hardly shake it. Moreover, after the collapse of the Eternal Tree, the effect of the demon jade was also greatly reduced, and the only thing that could resonate with it was the howling race that died of exhaustion. Wang Lu really didn't want to take the risk. However, what was the old saying? Do you want to be a coward for a lifetime, or do you want to be a hero, even if it only lasts for a few seconds? Although Wang Lu didn't think that a person who could only last for a few seconds was qualified to be called a hero, but, in the face of such a big mystery, he could not suppress his desire to explore. With a strong curiosity, Wang Lu pointed the tip of the sword downward. The primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi condensed into a point, but it didn't shoot out. Instead, it continued to surge, making the sword chi sharper. Then, Wang Lu gently inserted the tip of the sword into the gap between several corpses that were almost glued together. The long-awaited sword strike broke the gap between the corpses without any suspense. Then, the sword of Mount Kuan forcefully flicked it, and with the all-conquering sharpness of the heaven-splitting sword chi, it opened a gap in the mountain of corpses. At the same time, an earth-shattering shock force came from the mountain of corpses. Wang Lu hastily took out the demon jade and put it in front of him. This once supreme treasure of the demon realm still played some role, offsetting the shock force of the mountain of corpses. And Wang Lu took this opportunity to go deeper and completely drilled into the mountain of corpses. He wanted to find a person in the mountain of corpses, a guide who had led hundreds of millions of demons on the wrong path, the great demon king who had ruled the demon realm for 2,000 years. After the conversation between Hennessy and the demon's soul, Wang Lu already had too many riddles waiting to be solved. And the corpse of the demon king from 2,000 years ago was the first step for Wang Lu to solve the riddle. Just now, while walking, he had already detected the location of the demon king's corpse. Right in the center of the mountain of corpses, surrounded by hundreds of millions of demons, like stars surrounding the moon, that was the burial place of the demon king. This mountain of corpses was like a mausoleum made of corpses. Among the hundreds of millions of demons, only the demon king had a burial place. This was also a doubtful point. Moving forward in the mountain of corpses was difficult. Even with the protection of the demon jade, Wang Lu still had to face all kinds of visions. After all, this was the demon king's mausoleum that was far more terrifying than any tomb in the world. Hundreds of millions of creatures were buried together with him. Merely the resentment and hatred of those buried together could form a raging black tide in the demon realm. In 9 regions, there was often a legend about the ghost blowing out the lamp among tomb robbers. Wang Lu laughed at himself as he walked. If there were ghosts in this mountain of corpses, it would not just be the wandering ghosts but the ghost tide? Would that be the ghost's lamp? Fortunately, that scene that was not suitable for children did not happen. Under the protection of the demon jade, Wang Lu, relying on his non-phase sword defense, opened a path. He finally saw the coffin of the demon king. The demon king was indeed worthy of being called the demon king. The treatment he received was far different from the others. At the core of the mountain of corpses, the demon king had an independent room. Thousands of tall and burly demons carried him on their backs. Their backs formed the flat floor, walls, and roof. On the 4 walls, poems and essays were engraved to the demon king. Based on his understanding of the demon race's characters, Wang Lu could see that the last demon king of the demon race had established a good achievement in just a few decades. Therefore, he also enjoyed a very high prestige in the demon world. Even his words carried enormous weight, which was why he could make hundreds of millions of demons follow him. At the same time, there was also a portrait of the demon king on one of the walls. He could vaguely see that it was Lan's kindred. He had a red face and fangs and a long tail swayed behind him. It was just that, compared to Lan, this demon king was thin and small. Only his pair of hourglass-like pupils showed that he was different. Looking at this portrait, Wang Lu was a bit lost in thought. But soon he shook his head and no longer paid attention to it. The inside of this mountain of corpses was not a place to stay for a long time, and there was no need to look at the remains of the dead. The key problem was. Wang Lu took a few steps forward, reached out his hand, grabbed the cover of the demon king's coffin, and then forcefully opened it. Inside it was empty. Chapter 476. Facing the empty coffin, Wang Lu was silent for a long time and sighed helplessly. Sure enough, it's a lie. Before entering the mountain of corpses, Wang Lu began to doubt the identity of the last demon king. No matter how many amazing achievements he had made during his reign, there were 2 undeniable problems. First, the eternal tree of the demon realm collapsed during his tenure. Second, in the face of desperation, he led hundreds of millions of demons to make a choice that went against common sense. No matter how many eulogies there were for such a leader, it was worth questioning. After all, this kind of thing was not uncommon for Wang Lu. In Wang Lu's experience, he had seen too many similar situations. On the one hand, he fooled the people into dedicating everything for the great goal, but on the other hand he quietly prepared a way out. Among the so-called leaders, such goods could be said to emerge endlessly. The demon world was vast, so it was not unusual for it to occasionally produce one. It was a pity that according to the portrait, This leader was handsome even by human standards. He did not have a head, which was more in line with his own impression. As for why he coincidentally met such a person among the last demon kings, was very simple. Because once such a person appeared on the throne of the demon realm, he was basically destined to be the last demon king. However, looking at the empty coffin, Wang Lu was still a little uneasy. What happened 2,000 years ago? Is it really that simple? Because the demon king did not rule well, the eternal tree was destroyed, and the demons were led astray and fell into a long dream. Is that it? Unfortunately, no matter how many questions there were now, there was no way to verify it. The coffin was empty, and there were no valuable clues left. As for the eulogies on the surrounding walls, there was basically no reading value. A leader who could lead the most valiant and warlike race to their dreams naturally wouldn't leave any black marks in the history books for himself. Leaving a name in the history book was a common problem of that kind of person. So next, are you going to wake up? The mystery that he wanted to solve the most could not be solved, so Wang Lu could only settle for the next best thing and began to perform the secondary task, awaken the Millennium Dream and solve the problem of the Black Tide. In the opening ceremony of the new Demon World Lightning Ball League, Wang Lu had already begun to prepare for this. Now, it was almost imperative to carry it out. But Wang Lu couldn't make up his mind to do it immediately. What he had seen and heard in the new demon world for half a month was unforgettable to him. The dreamland built by the demon race for 2,000 years was simply a miracle. If that magnificent and brilliant civilization was destroyed like this, Wang Lu would really feel sad. He actually quite liked watching lightning balls. Moreover, although the essence of the new demon world was just a dream, no one could deny that this dream contained great power. For Wang Lu and the others, it was no different from being in the real world. The delicacies he enjoyed in his dream were real. His mustard seed bag still contained a few bowls of the special snacks of the new devil realm. They had already materialized. Similarly, the tens of thousands of powerful people in the new demon world were not just an illusion. Overall, they were powerful enough to keep pace with the current 9 regions. If they were all lost because of the dreamland resuscitation, it would be too much of a pity. Just by waking up 2 demon kings, a number of demon lords and countless demon generals in the new demon world, Wang Lu felt that this was not something worth boasting about. What's more, the prop that he used to wake up was the demon jade in his hand, the essence of the 5 blood spirit crown, which was given to him by the black fog demon in the group of immortal tombs. Could it be that the reason why he gave the demon jade to him was because he hoped that he would smash the new demon world and completely bury the last remaining fire of civilization in the demon world? There should be a more appropriate solution to this matter. However, if he let go of the new demon world because of a moment of kindness, then when the expansion of the black tide was finally uncontrollable, the new demon world would also be destroyed, and at the same time even the 9 regions would be affected. At that time, his kindness would be a shame that could not be washed away in his life. I say, last demon king, if you were to make the decision on this matter, what would you do? In the demon king's tomb, Wang Lu softly asked. At the same time, his eyes were locked on the mural on the wall. If it were you, you would not hesitate to activate the demon jade. Because this is rational enough and safe enough. Although this choice is cruel, it is a choice that has no other choice. As Wang Lu spoke, his voice became softer and softer, and at the same time, his eyes became brighter and brighter. If it were you, you would definitely say that. In any case, you can always find an excuse that there is no other choice. And I believe that there are many people in this world who agree with this kind of value. Even Xianghua is no exception. Unfortunately, the person who came here is me, and how could I conspire with people like you? When there is a dilemma, then find a new way, such as now. As Wang Lu said that, he walked to the wall and pressed his palm on a piece of writing. Then, he inwardly marveled that the martyrs finally left something useful. Now I can choose to wish them a sweet dream. After walking out of the mountain of corpses, facing the blood cloud of the demon world, Wang Lu took a long breath. The choice made in the tomb was not easy. Choosing to destroy everything was the simplest, but it was also the most disdainful thing for Wang Lu. Therefore, he chose a more difficult path. Wang Lu could not allow the black tide in the new demon world to continue to expand and eventually become a natural disaster that threatened the 9 regions. Therefore, his next job was to find a way to eliminate this black tide. That was easier said than done. The new demon world was full of geniuses. For 2,000 years, no one could eliminate the black tide. On the contrary, because of the expansion of the new demon world, the power of the black tide continued to grow. Wang Lu alone, in the face of the power of the whole world, was simply not worth mentioning. Even with the help of the demon jade, Wang Lu could not directly fight against the black tide. Even if the eternal tree was still there, and the demon jade still had the magical effect of controlling all things in the demon world, it was impossible to eliminate the evil thoughts in the hearts of the hundreds of millions of creatures in the demon world with just one jade. If the demon jade was so easy to use, the demon race would have already exterminated the human race during the first great war of immortals and demons. However, this was not an unsolvable problem. In the process of slowly walking out of the mountain of corpses in the tomb, Wang Lu had already built a general framework of the plan. In his view, things were still promising. The cause of the black tide was the collection of negative emotions that accumulated unconsciously after the creatures of the new demon world were forcibly harmonized. For 2,000 years, the people of the new demon world had never discovered that the world they lived in had castrated many things in their nature. Without realizing this, naturally, there was no way to solve the problem of the black tide. This was the case of the onlooker being blinded. Otherwise, with the current civilization accumulation of the new demon world, with its many strong people, could it really not solve the problem of the black tide? The biggest problem was that they were not aware of the existence of the problem. According to this line of reasoning, it seemed that it would be very easy for Wang Lu to solve the problem. As long as the residents of the new demon world were aware of the problem, it seemed that the problem would be easily solved. But after a little thought, he knew that it was a dead end. If the residents of the new demon world suddenly learned that they lived in a world that suppressed their instincts, then it was easy for them to think that the essence of this world might be a dream. Then they would suddenly wake up and the dream would shatter. Since Wang Lu did not want to wake them up, he could not use such a straightforward way. So he planned to do it more carefully and transform the setting of the new demon world from the perspective of outsiders. The emergence of the black tide from another perspective could also be understood as a problem of the survival of a country without external aggression. The demon race was a group of natural masochists. If they were not burned black and blue by the flames of war, their thoughts would not be clear. The environment of the new demon world was too peaceful, so it was not suitable for survival at all. In that case, he would create a little turbulence in the new demon world and let them enjoy themselves. Of course, with Wang Lu's current cultivation, it was still impossible for him to directly interfere with the dream, especially a world that was very close to the real world. It was really difficult for Wang Lu to intervene. But he had the demon jade. Thinking of this, Wang Lu only felt that the demon jade in his hand released an unprecedented amazing heat, as if it was also responding to him, pointing out the correct path. Very good. Next, let us be the saviors of the world together. Then he held the demon jade in his left hand and spread out a scroll in his right hand. The scroll was drawn by Lu Li, the sixth elder of the Heavenly Sword Hall. It could copy most of the talismans, manuals, and pictures in an instant, and even the effects of them could be inherited. Wang Lu used the scroll to make a copy of a painting in the Demon King's mausoleum and reproduced it in front of him. That painting depicted the legendary secret technique used by the Demon King 2,000 years ago, the dream-building technique. Due to the time limit, it was impossible for Wang Lu to master this secret method inherited from the royal family of the demon world in a short period of time. However, he also didn't need to master it. It was enough for him to know how to influence the new demon world, this behemoth. And this part of the content was recorded in great detail on the murals. The demon race 2,000 years ago had a very high degree of trust in the Demon King at that time. The new demon world they built operated independently and was not affected by external forces, but the Demon King was given special treatment, giving him the highest management authority. As long as he operated according to the method recorded on the murals, he could directly influence the fundamental laws of the new demon world. In simple terms, as long as the Demon King thought about it, he could double the gravity of the new demon world, and could dry up the spiritual energy of the new demon world. And these drastic changes that changed the world were actually operated by hundreds of millions of sleepers. The Demon King himself did not even need to do anything. Wang Lu was not the Demon King 2,000 years ago, but with the demon jade in his hand, he could make a temporary cameo. Of course, it was impossible for Wang Lu to manipulate all the laws of the new demon world as freely and meticulously as the Demon King himself. However, he only needed a slight adjustment. He wanted to release a spell throughout the new demon world. A spell that made people unable to fall into a deep sleep to escape from reality, and the time to cast the spell was when the wind of destruction came. He wanted the residents of the new demon world to face the black tide. Chapter 477. In the past 2,000 years, the demons of the new world of devils had never really faced their dark side. Every time the black tide came, they would hide in the city and sleep like ostriches. Occasionally, there would be challengers, but they would also be destroyed by the resentment of hundreds of millions of creatures. However, now Wang Lu intended to reverse this situation in one fell swoop. He wanted the demons of the new demon world to wake up from their slumber and face the black tide head-on, so that they could witness with their own eyes what kind of terrifying beast was bred in their heart. Then, the demons of the new world of devils would personally destroy the ghosts in the black tide. For 2,000 years, there was neither internal nor external trouble in the new demon world. Now, Wang Lu wanted to give them a big external trouble, which just so happened to give this group of idle demon race people who could only vent their wild nature through the lightning ball. And as they gradually invested more energy in fighting against the ghosts of the black tide, the power of the black tide would naturally decrease. Under this situation, the seemingly unstoppable black tide might really be suppressed by the demons of the new world of devils. Of course, in the process, the new world of devils would suffer a terrible blow. The dream civilization that had lasted for 2,000 years would also fall from the clouds and become more real, but this was the best result. Was it better than being swallowed by the black tide unknowingly? Was it better than being suddenly awakened by the demon jade and the collapse of all civilizations in an instant? This was the best of both worlds plan that Wang Lu came up with. Originally, he only had a rough idea in his mind, but he faced many difficulties when he actually put it into practice. But the dream-building technique that he found on the mausoleum murals was like a catalyst that made his prototype quickly mature. Wang Lu sat cross-legged on top of the mountain of corpses. In front of him was an open picture scroll. The densely packed text and graphics rapidly changed as his gaze shifted. However, no matter how much time passed, there would always be new content on the picture scroll. The text and pictures on the 1-foot square picture scroll seemed to be endless. The dream-building technique was a broad and profound knowledge. In Wang Lu's eyes, it was almost no less than the treasure of the Lingjian school, the Star Sword Book. With Wang Lu's level of comprehension, it was impossible for him to learn anything in a short period of time. However, he didn't need to learn that much. As his gaze swept up and down, the contents of the scroll changed rapidly before finally stopping at a certain section. Wang Lu sighed softly. This was the place. If translated literally, it was the king's edict, and according to Wang Lu's understanding, it was the administrator's manual. The relevant chapters were all about how an administrator should give orders to the new realm of devils, and then let this huge machine run on its own and deploy power to achieve the desired effect. The administrator's instructions were so complicated that they could almost form a separate language. However, Wang Lu only focused on the main points and quickly grasped the content he wanted. After that, there was no time to practice. It was time to put it into practice. Wang Lu pressed his hands on the surface of the mountain of corpses, and his primordial spirit slowly sank along the joints of his body. When he touched the mountain of corpses, he felt a tremendous force that almost made his soul scatter. Wang Lu immediately said the administrator's password, and the invincible force turned into a spring breeze, gently wrapping Wang Lu's primordial spirit. With his divine sense, Wang Lu found that he had come to the new realm of devils again, but this time it was from the perspective of God. He was above the clouds and the whole new realm of devils could be seen. At the same time, countless vague figures and numbers appeared in front of him, which were all kinds of data of the whole new realm of devils. Including the total population of the new realm of devils, the population statistics according to the realm of strength, and many constant settings of the new realm of devils. Wang Lu couldn't even understand most of the content. According to Wang Lu's own expectation, it would take at least a month to understand this administrator's function. How could he waste a month here? So he decided to take a crude and simple approach, directly skipping all the relevant prelude parts of the instructions, starting from the actual operation, and then directly practicing according to the examples provided in the manual. To put it bluntly, the new realm of devils was not his home after all, so what if he broke it? Thinking so, Wang Lu calmed his mind and began to input the administrator's instructions step by step according to the example. The original version of the instructions was written in the demon language, and it was also the royal family's exclusive cold language. Wang Lu was not familiar with this language, so he had to input it in the way he was familiar with first, and then translate it. As for the possible errors, he could only leave it to fate. As soon as the command was issued, Wang Lu only felt that there was a flash in front of him, as if there was a tremendous force that could not be resisted flowing around him, falling down, and covering the whole new realm of devils. And the residents of the new realm of devils who were affected by this energy all felt the top of their heads cool, as if they were enlightened, making them 100 times more energetic and full of energy. Many of the demons who had been tired for several days and were drowsy were instantly full of energy, as if they had been resurrected on the spot. And those demons who were sound asleep on the bed jumped up directly, looking around in disbelief, wondering if they were confused from sleep. Of course, there were also many side effects. Some demons were meditating in seclusion, in a state where they seemed to be asleep but not really asleep. When the auspicious sign suddenly fell from the sky, their breathing suddenly became erratic, and they were in unbearable pain. There were even some who were seriously injured and vomited blood because of this. The relevant detailed statistical report immediately appeared in front of Wang Lu. Looking at the huge number of casualties, even Wang Lu could not help but sweat a little. God mode was not fun. This kind of crude and one-size-fits-all command, even a simple awakening spell, would cause drastic changes in the world, causing heavy casualties. As for the follow-up effects of the incident, it was even more far-reaching and lasting. After the spell was launched, the strong people of the new realm of devils reacted immediately. The two Demon King sisters looked up at the sky at the same time, their sharp eyes almost meeting Wang Lu's. Wang Lu immediately stopped. If he continued to play, he was afraid that people would soon find out the abnormality, and then wake up to the nature of the new realm of devils. At that time, if the dream resuscitation, his entire plan would be in vain. And because the method of casting the spell was too rough, the entire structure of the world became unstable. A large number of error interface appeared on the control panel, and eye-catching red crosses almost filled the vision. But this experiment also proved that the command was effective. Next time, as long as the same command was entered when the black tide came, all the problems should be solved. Should be able to. The next black tide came very quickly. Perhaps because of the previous awakening experiment, it brought heavy psychological pressure to the demons of the new realm of devils. So just half a day later in the evening, the horn of the Demon King sounded in the sky. The black tide was coming. At the same time, Wang Lu, who was in God mode, also received a large number of warning messages. If translated in a free translation, it would be, "The dream system is processing an important process, do not turn off the system." Soon, the sky darkened and darkness covered the sky. The demons hid under the protection of the city according to the rules that had been passed down for 2,000 years. Most of them chose to rest, and a few planned to work overtime in their rooms. But when the black tide came, everyone would actually be forced to fall into a deep sleep and cease to exist. This state of disappearance was not the same as ordinary sleep, so it was not certain whether Wang Lu's awakening spell would work perfectly. But at present, this was the only command he could use to cast the spell. The same command as half a day ago appeared in Wang Lu's mind. When the time came, the command would be activated and the spell would be used to wake up the whole realm. Then the black tide finally came. The appearance of the black tide was very abrupt. A moment ago, Wang Lu was still reviewing the command code in his mind, and the next moment, the black tide silently enveloped the entire new demonic realm. At the same time, hundreds of millions of creatures in the new demonic realm began to fall into a deep sleep. Those who were already lying in bed with their eyes closed suddenly heard the sound of snoring. Those who did not sleep all night also fell asleep unknowingly. The next morning they would resuscitation full of energy, and then completely forget that they had fallen asleep. And when the demons fell asleep, their bodies also began to fade, connected to the whole world, and hid when the black tide came. And at this moment Wang Lu decisively issued a command. The red alert interface filled the field of vision in an instant, and it was stacking up at an alarming rate. The supreme place where Wang Lu was also shaking and the mountains were shaking. The command to wake up at this critical moment of the arrival of the black tide was a rude command that had never been issued in the 2,000 years of operation of the new demonic realm. And for Wang Lu, who issued the command, the world had begun to silently express its rejection. But Wang Lu did not care at all. Because no matter how much this dream rejected him, as long as he was still the orthodox lord of the demonic realm with the demonic jade in his hand, his command would be implemented. Those demons who had fallen asleep were forcibly awakened, and their figures appeared again from the void. And at this time the black tide had officially arrived. Pale skeletons and rotten zombies had filled the entire world, and then, unexpectedly, the resuscitation of the demons. If it was a small number of demons' resuscitation, then it was nothing more than a few missing people in the huge new demonic realm. But when the hundreds of millions of demons in the new demonic realm all resuscitation, it meant the beginning of a war. What is this? In a small border city of the new demonic realm, The guards on the city wall were trembling as they looked at the vast army of skeletons outside the city, and then immediately struggled out of their fear and resolutely sounded the alarm. After a while, several demon generals flew to the top of the city wall. Some of them were even stained with blood. They had experienced a short but fierce battle on the way and killed their opponents. However, after seeing the undead outside the city, they realized that the battle they had experienced was not worth mentioning at all. Quickly send an urgent report to His Majesty the Demon King. Say, "No need, I already know." Halfway through the demon general's words, an indifferent woman's voice interrupted. And hearing the woman's voice, all the demon generals knelt on one knee. "Greetings, Your Majesty the Demon King." The contemporary great demon king who ruled the new demonic realm actually came to this border city silently. However, several demon generals soon discovered that it was only a clone of the demon king who came here. All the cities in the new demonic realm are experiencing the same situation as you. The great demon king explained lightly. Several demon generals asked incredulously, "All the cities? Your Majesty the Demon King, what the hell is going on? Where the hell did these souls come from? What should we do?" For a time there was a lot of noise. Although the demon generals were strong after all, they had not experienced the baptism of war, so they quickly fell into panic. At this time the demon king's clone spoke again. "We don't need to care about what they are, where they come from. While speaking, the clone raised his right hand, and in the pitch-black steel glove, blazing flames were burning. At the same time, outside the city, where the army of skeletons was most concentrated, the ground within a radius of about 10 miles began to tremble like water waves, and a lone peak suddenly rose from the ground, like a long spear piercing through the huge army of the undead. At the top of the lone peak, lava burst out, and a blazing torrent of destruction flowed from the top of the mountain, sweeping away thousands of soldiers. The whole process took less than 10 minutes, and the army of skeletons that made the guards tremble was melted by the eruption of lava. Then, the Demon King's clone withdrew his right hand, which was almost in a state of incandescence, and said softly, "We just need to crush them." You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.